Chapter 584. The scene of a group of girls shedding tears made Wang Lu's skin tense up. Wang Lu had a rough idea of why they were crying. Although the kiss and hug just now were full of utilitarian intent, every move was from the heart and affected the heart. Love was a feeling that contained possessiveness. Sharing love with others was not human nature. Wang Lu asked himself. Even the most indifferent person, like Zhu Shiyao, would not be happy if she was hugging and kissing a strange man at this time. But if it was Lu Li and the others, seeing him being intimate with someone else, they would naturally be sad. Even if they didn't understand why he was sad. How about it? What else do you have to say? The cold question interrupted his thoughts. Dixian, who insisted on being a woman, floated over. His proud face was a clear contrast to the people sobbing. Seeing this winner's face, Wang Lu was also convinced. It was not because of the other party's scheming, but purely because of the other party's thick face. It was true that he hurt people's hearts by stepping on more than one boat, but the situation just now was out of his control. Every setting of the scenario led him to do so. If he didn't get 3 hearts, he couldn't pass the level. If he didn't give his love, he couldn't get the hearts. So what else could Wang Lu do? Using a kiss on the cheek and a hug to solve the problem was already very humane. If it was someone with a slightly weaker willpower, they would have already rubbed against each other and made love. Thinking of this, even Wang Lu admired his willpower. Moreover, from Wang Lu's original intention, even the kiss on the forehead and the hug were unnecessary. He never thought of having intimate contact with so many girls, at least not in this situation where his freedom was not guaranteed. But if he didn't do this, he couldn't pass the level, and if he didn't pass the level, he couldn't defeat the twisted Dixian. Therefore, Wang Lu had to be selfless and sacrifice himself. Fortunately, the above steps were one-on-one. At the time, Wang Lu thought that the setting was not anti-human to the extreme and gave some leeway. As long as he didn't let other women see him being intimate with others and sent everyone out at once, there would be no problem. However, Dixian's stubbornness or shamelessness was eye-opening. He actually set up another game in the middle. At this point, he really had nothing to say. Her hatred for men had reached the point where she completely ignored reason and logic. She self-directed a good show and then pushed all the blame onto men. As expected of the product of schizophrenia. Saying another word to someone like her would be a waste of time. Nothing to say? This is what you men are like. You hurt one woman after another, but you don't even apologize or reflect on yourself. You. Upon hearing this, Wang Lu finally could not bear it anymore. In fact, from these 2 sentences, Wang Lu vaguely caught a glimmer of light. This self-proclaimed heavenly Dixian was most likely hurt by a successful and famous man. Although she could understand that the other party had his reasons, emotionally, she was always unwilling and just wanted an apology from the other party. However, she didn't get that apology and finally died of depression. It was not until thousands of years of brewing in the group of immortal tombs that she finally suffered from schizophrenia and became a female supremacist clown. However, even if he understood all this, the anger in Wang Lu's chest would not be extinguished. Damn it, I didn't say anything, but you actually want a foot after giving me an inch? Moreover, it's fine to target me, but don't you think that treating Lu Li and the others as victims is worse than what you said, a man who specializes in hurting people's heart? As for me, I should blame myself for hurting people's heart because of my carelessness, but because of this, how much anger do you, the culprit, have to bear? Perhaps the old saying is true, a shameless person is invincible. Since you are shameless to this point, then I will not be polite. Previously, I always abided by the bottom line in my words and deeds, which led to my hands and feet being tied, and instead, I was trampled on by others. Shamelessness? That was simply displaying slight skill in front of an expert. In 9 regions and 3 realms, except for Wang Wu, no one has the qualification to show shamelessness in front of me. Wang Lu's face was as solemn as water. What a joke, why should I apologize? A joke suddenly interrupted Dixian's long-winded chatter. You. Dixian did not expect that Wang Lu would dare to boldly contradict him in a defeated situation. For a moment, he was at a loss for words. You've hurt so many people, but, Wang Lu sneered and interrupted the other side, they are crying tears of joy, what does it have to do with injury? What did you say? I said, they are very happy now. If it weren't for you, this blind trash, clamoring here, it would be a beautiful family scene. You, this slut, keep nagging here, could it be that you want to be a third party? Dixian angrily glared at him. For a moment, he was at a loss for words. After a long time, he moved to Lu Li's side and pointed at the girl's swollen eyes. Do you want to say that she is happy like this? Of course. She is very happy. Can you believe what you just said? Why not? Men and women are different. The way they express sadness and joy are different. And now, they are expressing joy in their own way. You are also a woman, but you can't see it. Hearing this, Dixian didn't even know how to refute. I know you don't believe it. It's hard to win people's trust with empty words. Today, I will let you know clearly why you lost. Wang Lu let out a long laugh and also walked to the front of Lu Li. With his head held high, he strode with a domineering momentum that was not inferior to Dixian. In terms of strength, Wang Lu was less than 1% of the other side, but when the two stood face to face, their momentum was almost able to compete with each other. Wang Lu knew that this was not because the other side was soft-hearted, but because she was curious about what he was going to say next, so she didn't fully suppress him. At the same time, the source of chaos was also secretly supporting him. However, the key to victory was still his performance. If he couldn't really convince the other side, his momentum at this time was just a bluff. Of course, Wang Lu's confidence in winning was absolute. Lu Li, I ask you, why are you crying? Lu Li looked up at Wang Lu. Her eyes were still red and pitiful. She looked a little wronged, but more than that, she was confused. I don't know. It's just that when I was arranged to be here, looking at senior brother and them, I felt uncomfortable for no reason. Dixian sneered. Listen clearly, her heart is uncomfortable. Wang Lu ignored her and continued to ask Lu Li, heart is uncomfortable. Do you hate me, your senior brother? Lu Li gently raised her delicate eyebrows and softly said, no, how could I hate senior brother? It's good that you don't hate me. I have always liked you. Hearing Wang Lu said that she liked him, Lu Li suddenly smiled through her tears. I also like senior brother the most. Sweet words and flowery words to deceive women are really good. Wang Lu continued to pretend that Dixian didn't exist and asked Lu Li, just now, when I was close to your big sister and the others, you said your heart was uncomfortable. Let me ask you, do you want me to never contact them again? Upon hearing this, Lu Li was stunned. Never contact them again? Yes, don't talk to them, don't see them, don't care about everything that happens to them. Because being close to them makes you uncomfortable, I will never do that again. Do you want that? No, I don't want that. Lu Li sternly said, although Lu Li doesn't know many things, Master has taught me many times that fellow disciples should love each other. Moreover, if I do that, senior brother, you will be sad, right? I know the feeling of sadness, so I don't want you to be sad. Wang Lu's heart couldn't help but be moved. This child is so well behaved that it makes people feel pity for her. It's not in vain that I chose you as the material to prove my point of view, you really didn't disappoint me. Then, later on, when I'm close to them, I will hide it from you, not letting you know, how about it? Lu Li hesitated for a moment and then shook her head. No, I don't want senior brother to hide it from me. Hee, then when you see me being close to them, what should you do if your heart is uncomfortable? Lu Li brightly smiled. If my heart is uncomfortable, just cry it out. When the time comes, if senior brother can comfort me like this, that would be even better. Wang Lu sighed and then touched her head. His heart was also filled with emotion. Fortunately, the first choice was her. This child's performance was simply perfect. Then, it's my turn to perform. After Wang Lu and Lu Li finished their conversation, he turned his head and looked at Dixian. Did you hear it? Dixian sneered. I heard it clearly. It's nothing more than a despicable man relying on a woman's tolerance to be promiscuous. You're wrong again. I gave her the right to choose. It's her who wants to see me being intimate with other women, it's her who wants me to continue to be friendly with other women, and it's her who chooses to continue to like me and get close to me. Otherwise, she could ignore me, alienate me, and never see me again. Everything is her choice, her love, so the feeling of sadness is naturally her choice. It's her choice to be sad, to cry, because all of this is a way for her to express her love. What's wrong with me saying that she cried tears of joy? You are twisting words and forcing logic. Yes, I took the logic, so the logic is on my side. But your logic was taken away by me, so you have no logic at all. In fact, the relationship between men and women is the coexistence of smiles and tears. If you really despair for a person, your heart will be like dead ashes, and you will never come in contact with him. If a woman knows that she will feel sad and wronged, but she still chooses to be with a man, it can only mean that she likes it. It's in her nature to enjoy sadness and pain. Ridiculous. Ridiculous? Aren't the biggest readers of those popular sad novels like you women? It's in your nature to enjoy tragedy, whether you admit it or not. If you're dissatisfied with this, you should blame the strange nature of you women. What does it have to do with men? Shut up. Wang Lu sneered. Even if I shut up, can it prove that you've won? You might as well kill me with your sword. You're not convinced, you don't believe that you women naturally like pain. This is not surprising, so I'll let you see it more clearly. Wang Lu said and reached out his hand to hook his finger at someone who has been watching the show. Wang Wu, let me ask you, do you naturally like to be whipped, abused, and trampled by others? The more painful your body and mind is, the happier you are. Can't you sleep if you don't break a few bones every day? Hearing this, the blue veins on Wang Wu's forehead bulged, and the vicious words in her heart were 10 times, 100 times more, rushed toward Wang Lu. However, she, after all, understood that there were priorities. Right now, Wang Lu needed to establish his victory, and this victory was not only about Wang Lu, but also about the safety of everyone. So she had to cooperate to the end. That's right. Wang Wu gritted her teeth and said word by word, you're right, my nature is like this. Wang Lu said to Dixian, did you hear that? Women are like this. If you're not satisfied, I can continue asking. I have absolute confidence in proving that they are all crying tears of joy. I just don't know if you're willing to listen. Of course, the other party was not willing to listen. Because the more she listened, the more she was moved, and the faith she had been holding on to for many years was gradually loosening. But she was even more unwilling to admit defeat. But before she could speak, Wang Lu said, you set the rules. Now that I've satisfied your conditions, you might as well just pull out your sword and go back on your words. Anyway, I've never expected you women to be willing to admit defeat. Ha ha ha. As soon as he said that, the laughter of the source of chaos exploded in the white world. She doesn't admit defeat verbally, but the defense in her heart is riddled with holes. Now that things have come to this, even if she doesn't want to admit defeat, there's no way. As he spoke, the entire world bloomed with countless fine black cracks, and the world that belonged to heaven was broken in an instant. I've waited a long time for you to show a flaw. Wang Lu vaguely saw that when the world of heaven was broken, two shadows, one black and one white, gradually intertwined and fused into one. This process was very intense, but the level of what happened was far higher than reality. So much so that Wang Lu, with the cultivation of King Pill, could only see a scale claw from afar, and even this scale claw could not be seen clearly. If he could not see clearly, then so be it. At least Wang Lu knew that the source of chaos had finally seized the opportunity to swallow and fuse the old enemy that had been locked in a stalemate for many years. It seemed that this journey of asking the heaven could finally come to an end. It could barely be considered a glorious victory. Facing Dixian with King Pill, facing a bigot that did not speak logic and reason, he was able to crush her heart and cause her faith to waver. If it were anyone else in this world, it would be difficult for them to do better. Although the final victory did not rely on the sword in his hand, which went against the aesthetics of swordsmanship, the winner was not to be blamed, and Wang Lu would not haggle over it. The only problem now was, Wang Lu closed his eyes. He did not want to look back at the scene behind him. Yu Xinyao, Bai Shixian, Lady Boss. He really did not want to think about the faces of these people. When he thought about it, it was as if his primordial spirit was injured by the god-slaying sword. That argument just now was only useful against Lu Li. If it was against Yu Xinyao, do you mind being intimate with other women, then it would definitely be a slap in the face. Therefore, although the problem of heaven was solved, his own problem was not. Not only was it not solved, it was even more serious. Because just now, when he eloquently argued in front of heaven, other people were not deaf, of course, they could hear it clearly. Wang Lu, what you said just now, was it all true? The voice of Lady Boss Feng Ling came from behind him. Women are born to be cheap, if they don't feel pain, they won't feel comfortable. I didn't expect you to have such a good understanding of women. In the future, when we have time, let's have a good exchange. Exchange what, bodily fluids? Chapter 585. It took a long time for Dixian to split and fuse. After no one knows how long, the source of chaos finally completely swallowed up the heaven. The black and white colors merged into one, and a beautiful figure broke out from the once ugly meatball. At the same time, the whole world had become clear. There was no longer a chaotic world, and there was no heavenly earth. The cultivators in the sky and the chaotic creatures on the ground had all disappeared without a trace. There was only a vast grassland, and the warm sunlight shone over the distant mountains, creating ripples on the meadow like the surface of a lake. We meet again. In front of her, Wang Lu, who was dressed in a red and white uniform, nodded. It's been a long time, really? Took a long time? My impression of it is not clear anymore. As she said that, the woman's eyes gradually became deep. Unexpectedly, there is a day where I can see the light of day again. Fart, in this group of immortal tombs, as long as you think about it, there are as many suns in the sky as you want. Hee, I still need to be able to think about it. The woman didn't mind Wang Lu's rudeness at all. When I fell into a deep sleep last time, I never thought that I could wake up. But let's not talk about this first. Has your problem been solved? With that, the woman looked at Wang Lu curiously. After the fusion, this Dixian was no longer the paranoid and almost crazy heaven. Her mind was unprecedentedly clear. Thus, in her view, Wang Lu's argument just now was not worth mentioning. At the same time, she also noticed that Wang Lu did not really solve the problem. Although he defeated heaven, he did not defeat the Azura field that belonged to him. How should he deal with those girls whose hearts were hurt by him? Wang Lu snappily replied, "It's none of your business. I'm curious." The woman calmly said, "Before I escaped to the group of immortal tombs, you should have guessed my experience. At that time, I was really hurt by that man, so I fell into mental instability. After thousands of years, I still think that although that man hurt me, he is undoubtedly the most respected and admired hero in the world. Even he could not deal with the problem. I want to know how you did it. Wang Lu rolled his eyes at her. I'm good at living. Huh, you're such an interesting person. You're obviously very reserved, but you still have to put on such a vulgar face. If you could really use your big tool to make a harmonious relationship, you could have used your ability to subdue everyone in that scene, instead of leaving a hidden danger for others to take advantage of. I know you're very resistant to indulging in sensual pleasures, and you won't take action if you're not sincere. So I'm even more curious, how did you clean up the mess? Well, it's fine if you really don't want to answer, but I can make a deal with you. You tell me how you dealt with that problem, and I'll answer a few of your questions. I believe you must have a lot of questions about the group of immortal tombs. It just so happens that I participated in the construction of the group of immortal tombs from the beginning, so I know a lot. Wang Lu didn't buy this at all. Come on, let's not talk about anything else. I helped you unify your spirit, which is equivalent to giving you a new lease of life. It's not too much for you to repay me with your body. Can you not answer a few of my questions? You're right. According to the rules of the group of immortal tombs, the more difficult the challenge is, the more generous the reward will be. You've passed my test perfectly, so it's more than enough for me to answer a few of your questions. But actually, I have something else to give you. With that, the woman reached out her hand. Wang Lu suddenly felt a shock on his waist, and then his mountain sword Kun involuntarily jumped out. The sword spirit Autumn Beam stood on the side. What a rare good seedling. The woman softly sighed with emotion. Although the sword body is mediocre, the sword spirit has cultivated for thousands of years, the sword heart is clear, and the sword intent is full. This is really not easy. For it to fall into your hands and let you use it like this, it's really a reckless waste. Wang Lu turned his head to look at Autumn Beam. The latter also curiously turned her head to look at him. Autumn Beam, do you think I've been licking your boots all these years? Autumn Beam earnestly replied, when I first followed Master's cultivation base was still shallow. I had to go through 9 layers of seal before I could be freely controlled by you. At that time, I did have some prejudice against you. But over the years, you've let me witness too many miracles that I haven't seen in the past 1,000 years. Now, although you're only at the peak of King Pill, your strength has already surpassed my previous masters. Primal Chaos Heaven-Splitting Sword Chi is an immortal-level sword technique from the ancient times. It's Mountain Sword Kun that can't keep up with your footsteps. You're wrong. Dixian softly interrupted, I can't keep up with him because he didn't use you correctly. Although middle-rank spiritual treasure is not a treasure handed down from generation to generation, its power is not inferior to that of King Pill level cultivators. Not to mention that your sword heart has already been formed, so you can be regarded as a living creature. Among the middle-rank spiritual treasures, you also have the top qualification. In my time, this was one of the conditions to be promoted to immortal treasure. Immortal treasure. Wang Lu was surprised when he heard this. He looked at Autumn Beam up and down more seriously, and then softly said, this matter can't be known by Wang Wu. Autumn Beam, if Wang Wu wants to ask you out in the future when I'm not here, remember not to agree to her. I'll remember. Dixian said again, the sword of Mount Kun is a sword of the 5 elements. Only by combining it with the 5 element spells can its power be pushed to the limit. Its sword body is thick and stable. If it's mainly used for defense, it's also suitable. But your defensive sword technique looks simple and unadorned, but the complexity of its changes is amazing. As for Brother Ming's Primal Chaos Heaven-Splitting Sword Chi, it has a simple and crude method to use. But that kind of heaven-defying sword intent that breaks through everything is incompatible with the sword of Mount Kun. The 2 sword techniques that you're best at are not compatible with the sword of Mount Kun. So even if it's 100% powerful, you can only use 30% to 40% at most. Wang Lu sighed, how could I not feel what you're saying? However, first of all, the present era is different. It's not like the ancient times where spiritual treasures and immortal treasures are everywhere. A spiritual treasure level flying sword itself is already very rare, how could it be qualified to be picky? Second, the sword of Mount Kun might not be compatible with me, but Autumn Beam's loyalty and quick-wittedness are hard to find in the world. Moreover, she has made great contributions in the life and death battle, so it's good to be her friend. In any case, when I practiced Primal Chaos Heaven-splitting sword Qi, I also practiced the method of replacing the sword with the finger. So, in fact, you're recklessly wasting God's gift. The Dixian woman covered her mouth and chuckled. But, I happen to have something here that can let the sword of Mount Kun exert its due power. With that, she took out a pink dagger. The sword was only a foot long. The sword body looked light and ethereal, but it was actually very sharp. Just by looking at it from a distance, it made people feel a burst of chill. Right now, Wang Lu was also a sword expert. After observing it for a moment, he slightly frowned. The material of this sword is extraordinary, but it looks like it's dead. You're not mistaken, this sword is indeed dead. In the past, she followed me into the group of immortal tombs and was buried with me. Unfortunately, after 10,000 years, I woke up, but she couldn't. In other words, this was a flying sword that had lost its sword spirit. Judging from its quality, it was probably a peak-level spiritual treasure or even immortal treasure when it was alive. However, the sword spirit had been lost, just like a corpse, its power was greatly reduced. At this time, it was taken out. Could it be, yes, let Autumn Beam absorb this rouge tears, and then she can be reborn. If it goes well, it's not difficult for her to directly upgrade to immortal treasure level. It's not that simple, right? Wang Lu questioned. Absorbing the immortal sword to upgrade sounds good, but with Autumn Beam's current strength, absorbing the immortal sword is tantamount to a snake swallowing an elephant, it can't be digested at all. That's why I will do it. In the past, I could also personally refine immortal treasures. Although now my strength is not at its peak, I can still attach your sword spirit to the rouge tears. Of course, it's not easy, and I have to pay a considerable price. Wang Lu pondered for a moment. This gift is not light. For me, a handy sword of Mount Kun is more precious than a brand new immortal sword. Dixian said with a smile, then, it should be more than enough to be used as a reward for clearing the trial, as well as to repay your grace of rebirth, right? Yes, that's true. So, if you want to know the secret of the group of immortal tombs, please exchange it with your secret. Wang Lu was deeply convinced by the vigorous gossiping spirit of this Dixian girl. Just for a pain-in-the-ass question, she really didn't hesitate to pay the price. According to normal circumstances, an immortal sword was already enough to make up for Wang Lu's previous hard work. After all, it was a top magical treasure that was rarely seen in the entire 9 regions. By placing Autumn Beam on rouge tears, they would have the opportunity to fuse into one after several decades. And what Dixian girl wanted to do was to artificially shorten this process. Even Dixian had to pay a heavy price for going against the heaven's will. She was really willing. Very well, since you're so obsessed with this question. Wang Lu sighed and revealed the answer. The woman closed her breath and her eyes were full of concentration. For Wang Lu, perhaps this problem was not worth mentioning. However, for her, it was the demon that had plagued her for thousands of years. Now that she was clear-minded, she was no longer obsessed with men and women. However, she still wanted to know if there was a solution to the problem that made her heartbroken. Actually, it's very simple. I told Wang Wu to help me get rid of those women, and I will give you the remaining 3 mysterious sky crystals. And then? And then I don't know. In any case, the problem is handed over to her. How she deals with it is her business. I just want the result. Just want the result? This is too sloppy. What if she can't solve the problem? What if she not only can't solve it, but worsens it? Wang Lu shrugged, then I'll save the 3 mysterious sky crystals. What's the point of thinking so much? In any case, she did solve the problem in the end. She did solve it, but, before that, did you trust her that much? She's a person, if she has enough motivation, she can still do things very well. And more importantly. Wang Lu said this, looked left and right, then lowered his voice and said softly, the management of the harem must fully rely on the main palace concubine. Dixian was startled when she heard this. She only felt that this simple sentence contained very profound and exquisite knowledge. He still remembered a long time ago, when the girls around him could get along harmoniously, they all forgot that their love was shared with others. At that time, it was indeed because he had a big sister who was good at dancing and playing by his side. Beautiful, intelligent, powerful, she won everyone's admiration, and cleverly maintained everyone's feelings. It was a pity that beauty had a short life, and that big sister couldn't accompany him to the end. After her death, there were more and more conflicts and frictions between men and women, and finally, it fell apart and couldn't be salvaged. Thinking of this, the woman looked at Wang Lu again, only to feel that the figure of this young cultivator overlapped with him more and more, and Wang Lu's current situation was also very similar to him back then. You're very lucky, you must cherish the people around you. Wang Lu smiled and nodded. Then, he remembered something and opened his mouth. By the way, about the management of the harem that I told you just now, if you rely on the main palace concubine, you don't need to tell others. As soon as he finished speaking, Wang Lu heard someone behind him ask. What don't need to tell others? Also, about the management of the harem, what do you mean by relying on the main palace concubine? You mean if you continue asking, the 3 mysterious sky crystals will be gone. Wang Lu looked back at Wang Wu and said with an extremely serious expression. Chapter 586. After the burning heart of gossip was satisfied, Dixian finally got to the point. I am Xian Mo, the 13th generation head of Qianhua sect. Well, I think you probably haven't heard of this sect. Because of me, Qianhua sect died out in my generation. Even after 10,000 years, when it came to the extinction of the sect, Xian Mo still looked full of self-blame and sadness. Wang Lu recalled what he learned in Tengyun Hall, and he did not remember hearing the name Qianhua sect. However, at this time, Wang Wu said, Qianhua sect? I remember seeing records about it somewhere. Before the end of the world, it was a big sect that rose rapidly by relying on the struggle of several generations of geniuses. The disciples of the sect were known for their versatility. Is that so? Even after 10,000 years, after the end of the world, the name of Qianhua sect is still spread in the world? In this case, I can barely explain it to the ancestors. Xian Mo shook his head. Well, let's not talk much, let's start the reward session. This Rouge Tears was once a peerless immortal sword, known for its lightness and sharpness. The sword spirit that lived in it was a sword maniac who had reached the Desheng stage but unfortunately failed to cross the tribulation. He endowed the immortal sword with all kinds of incredible magical powers. Rouge Tears has been with me for many years and has made countless brilliant contributions. Unfortunately, I have never been able to make good use of her. Xian Mo said, patting the sword gently, and the regret on his face became stronger. As the head of Qianhua sect, I once studied swordsmanship for a period of time. This Rouge Tears was also personally refined by him at that time and then passed to me, but I am not a qualified sword cultivator. It is a waste to give this thing to me, so I will pass it on to you, hoping that you can make it shine again. Wang Lu did not rush to take the Rouge Tears, but turned his head and looked at Liang Qiu. What do you think? For you, this is a chance to reach the heavens in a single bound, but it means that you have to abandon your 1,000-year-long past. Although Xian Mo promised to help you absorb rouge tears instead of being absorbed by rouge tears, from now on, you are no longer the spirit of the sword of Mount Kun. Liang Qiu said, with my aptitude, even if I do my best, I will not be able to advance to immortal step. To be able to obtain such an opportunity, Liang Qiu can't ask for more. But as he spoke, the loyal sword spirit couldn't help but lower his head. The body of the sword of Mount Kun is blunt and clumsy. It really can't follow its master for long. Upon hearing this, Wang Lu smiled. These words meant that old feelings were unforgettable? Or did she have other ideas? But Autumn Beam quickly raised her head. Abandoning the place where I have been staying for the past 1,000 years is indeed something that I am unwilling to do, but to Autumn Beam, being able to continue following Master is more important than anything else. Master, you are a genius, and one day you will be able to cross the tribulation and ascend. I only hope that I can witness that moment with my own eyes. Oh, I have been with you for 20 years, but this is the first time that I find that you have a good eloquence. Wang Lu sighed, patted Autumn Beam's shoulder, and then said to Xian Mo, please start. The fusion of Autumn Beam and Rouge Tears was single-handedly handled by Xian Mo. For a Dixian, this kind of transformation project that was close to reshaping an immortal treasure was not easy. It was not difficult to separate Autumn Beam from the sword of Mount Kun. In the case where Autumn Beam did not resist, Xian Mo only needed to wave his hand to completely cut off the connection between the sword spirit and the sword body, and at the same time, the sword spirit was not hurt. This alone could not help but make people sigh with emotion at the brilliant means of the ancient Earth immortals. At least in the current union of 10,000 immortals, no master refiner dared to boast that he could do this with ease. But for Xian Mo, this was just the beginning. The real difficulty was to put Autumn Beam into Rouge Tears, and to maintain her wisdom in the new sword body, and to keep her sword heart intact. As a sword spirit, Autumn Beam's talent was excellent, but in essence, she was only the sword spirit of a spiritual treasure. Compared to an immortal treasure, she was still too weak. Rouge Tears looked petite and exquisite, but for Autumn Beam, it was as vast as the sea. Without the protection of Xian Mo, her wisdom would be obliterated in an instant, and she would be assimilated by the sword body, becoming a budding source of wisdom on the Rouge Tears. To grow into a real sword spirit, it would take at least hundreds of thousands of years of nurturing and cultivation. Moreover, after the sword spirit grew up, it would no longer be the original Autumn Beam, but more like her daughter. However, how could the weak Autumn Beam smoothly occupy the powerful Rouge Tears? In today's 9 regions, even in principle, this was impossible, let alone in practice. Nowadays, there were a lot of immortal treasures circulating among the major sects, but a considerable part of them were the remains of immortal treasures excavated from the ruins of the previous generation. Among them, the sword spirit had been lost, so the power of the immortal treasures had fallen. If they could master this sword spirit transfer and fusion technique, it meant that at least dozens of immortal treasures in 9 regions could be repaired. Therefore, Wang Lu and Wang Wu insisted on watching the whole process, hoping to learn enough from it. Even if they couldn't use it themselves, they could pass it to those sects that needed it at a high price, which would be profitable. At least, Wang Lu was very clear that in Xingjing sect, there were at least more than 10 broken immortal treasures that needed to be repaired. Xian Mo didn't refuse the request to watch from the sidelines, but just said with a smile, "This technique is not that great, but it probably won't be of much use to you." Then, she covered her hands on the Rouge Tears, and her 10 fingertips bloomed out a circle of ripples, which surged with each other, causing the Rouge Tears to shake endlessly. Wang Lu narrowed his eyes, making his vision more focused. A moment later, his mind was completely immersed in the changes of the ripples, and he was unaware of the passage of time. This ripple vibration reminded him of something, as if he had seen a similar technique a long time ago. The power was great, but the price was equally great. With Wang Lu's memory and Taoist Master King Pil's primordial spirit attainment, all the details that happened in his more than 30 years of life could actually be used at will. However, at this time, his whole mind was used to perceive the ripples, so he had no time to care about it. After an unknown period of time, the ripples gradually stopped, and Wang Lu also came back to his senses. However, when he looked up, the silver hair reflected in front of him made his mind greatly shocked. A moment ago, he saw a beautiful woman who looked to be in her 20s. Now, the woman's appearance was still the same, but her black hair had turned into silver, and her deep eyes could not help but reveal the vicissitudes of life. 1,000 years ripples? At the same time, Wang Lu also remembered the true face of the ripples. When he went to the Grand Cloud platform to compete with the Beast Master School, Grand Cloud Fairy used this trick to let him directly advance to shoot on stage, and then he had the capital to fight the Beast Master School head-on. In one night, Wang Lu was promoted to shoot on stage, which was almost a miracle in the current immortal cultivation system. Therefore, Grand Cloud Fairy also paid the price of death. Now that the ripples of time had reappeared, Dixian had forcibly pushed the fusion process of Autumn Beam and Rouge Tears forward by 1,000 years. What kind of tragic price he had to pay. No wonder she said that it was meaningless to learn this trick. In today's 9 regions, who could have such a strong capital to squander? Even if there was, in order to repair an immortal treasure, the gain was not worth the loss. No matter how strong an immortal treasure was, it still needed people to use it. After the 1,000 years ripples, Xian Mo put down the Rouge Tears and somewhat tiredly said, "It's done. Let her adapt for 3 to 5 days, and then you can start the sacrificial refining, and then she can use it freely. Thank you for your kindness." Wang Lu cupped his hands across his chest and seriously said, "No need, if you want to say that I'm indebted, it's me who's indebted to you. My life should have already disappeared when the group of immortal tombs was built. You opened the group of immortal tombs, stimulated the change, brought me back to life, and even personally removed my demon heart, allowing me to regain my sanity. I've already gained a big advantage by paying this price." Speaking to this, Wang Wu suddenly interrupted, "This Rouge Tears, there's no side effect, right?" "Side effect?" Xian Mo asked. Wang Wu said, "The change in the surrounding spiritual energy and even the law of the main path. In the age of chaos, many cultivators who stood at the peak of the immortal path fell overnight because they couldn't adapt to the environment. Since then, many methods could no longer be cultivated, and many high-level magical treasures have lost their magical effect. And you are undoubtedly a cultivator before the age of chaos. Would the magical treasures repaired by your power be rejected by the current world?" Upon hearing this, Xian Mo was slightly startled, seemingly surprised by Wang Wu's statement. However, she soon shook her head and said with a smile, "Don't worry, there won't be any side effect. Otherwise, this group of immortal tombs was built before the age of chaos, and all kinds of technology used were at the peak level at that time. If the age of chaos transformed the entire world like you said, I'm afraid the group of immortal tombs could not be opened and operated." "So, the age of chaos did not transform the world?" Xian Mo said, "I haven't personally experienced the so-called age of chaos, but if it really shakes the entire world, it's impossible for the group of immortal tombs not to be affected. Therefore, at least you can understand it as the existence of the group of immortal tombs can perfectly adapt to the new world." "That makes sense." Wang Wu nodded. "I have no problem with that." Xian Mo said, "I have a question. About the age of chaos, how do you understand it?" "It's a helpless natural disaster. At least, that's what the current records say." "Natural disaster, that's right." Xian Mo sighed. "How much do you know about the group of immortal tombs? Did Elder Brother Ming tell you about the origin of this group of immortal tombs?" Wang Lu said, he didn't say it in detail. I only know that the group of immortal tombs is to fight against an extremely powerful opponent. An extremely powerful opponent. So, in your opinion, what kind of powerful opponent is worthy for us to build such a group of immortal tombs? This question was actually one of the key questions that Wang Lu had been thinking about for many days. The strength of Dixian could be seen from the strength of the gatekeeper, Zhong Shengming. Even in the glorious era before the age of chaos, such a group of people definitely stood at the top of the world. However, the enemy that they needed to face forced them to choose to lie dormant and pin their hopes on the later generations. What kind of enemy was worthy for a group of proud Dixian to compromise like this? When he first opened the group of immortal tombs, Wang Lu had guessed that it was the demon race. However, now that he had seen the tragedy of the demon world, Wang Lu had long denied this possibility. And with his current vision, there seemed to be only one possibility no matter how he thought about it. Is it the fallen immortal? Chapter 587. Fallen Immortal? When he heard the answer from Wang Lu, Xian Mo seemed a little surprised. You guys already know about it? Wang Lu said, more than no, we've already dealt with it. Before he could finish his words, Xian Mo's face suddenly sank. Have they already begun to descend? Upon hearing her question, Wang Lu realized that the crisis of the fallen immortal was probably more terrible than expected. They descended. In a single sentence, Wang Lu could not help but picture the scene of dozens of Mr. Feng Yu descending on 9 regions in his mind. That would really be the end of the world. However, the situation was not yet desperate. Recalling what Mr. Feng Yu did, it was not difficult to see that he tried his best to provoke disputes between the demon world and 9 regions. In fact, it was to pave the way for something. Unfortunately, he failed on the verge of success, and that thing did not reach the last step. At present, there are only advanced troops. The arrival of the main force should still face insurmountable barriers. However, Xian Mo shook his head seriously and said, the appearance of the advanced troops means that the situation is already very bad. Well, you don't know the whole picture of the matter, so I'd better start from the beginning. Fallen Immortal. Let's call them by this name for the time being. The earliest record of the Fallen Immortal, for me, is also from the Savage Age a long time ago. According to the history books, one day, there was a natural phenomenon. The sky opened and a strange light shone. A creature with black wings on his back came to 9 regions. He claimed to be an immortal and had a powerful divine power that was unimaginable to cultivators. At first, people thought that he was a true immortal from the lower realm, who came with the sacred will of the immortal world and worshipped him like a god. However, soon he did evil in 9 regions, which aroused public anger. Wang Wu asked, what exactly do you mean by doing evil? Xian Mo said, this matter is not detailed in the history books, but according to the various historical materials sorted out by later people, the conclusion is that the fallen immortal robbed the Taoist companion of the leader of a high-rank sect and abused her to death. After being insulted like this, how could the sect leader let it go? Unfortunately, although he was known as one of the few experts in the world, he was smashed into a meat patty in 3 moves by the fallen immortal and then swallowed into the belly of the fallen immortal. His thousands of years of cultivation base turned into nourishment for others. Moreover, this was only the beginning. Later on, he relied on his tyrannical strength, and his absurd and tyrannical actions were too numerous to enumerate. In the end, a large group of cultivators joined forces to resist him. That battle shook the heavens and the earth, and the sun and moon lost their brilliance. In the end, they completely eliminated him, but the cultivation world also paid a terrible price. From then on, people finally realized that those who descended from the upper realm might not necessarily have good intentions. Wait, how did you confirm that he really came from the upper realm of immortals and not some other place, such as the demon realm? Whether it's the 9 regions or the demon world, to exaggerate it, it's just a drop in the ocean. From that person's remains, we found clues about his cultivation in the human world. 10,000 years ago, he was indeed a cultivator who cultivated in the mortal world. So that's how it is. After ascending, he forgot his roots? It's not that he forgot his roots. He was originally an evil cultivator in 9 regions, and doing evil is his duty. Xian Emo said with a wry smile, but occasionally, similar things happened, and the fallen immortals who descended from the upper realm came from the righteous sections. Wang Lu frowned and said, "It's not useful to come from the righteous sects. What exactly did they experience after ascending? Isn't the immortal world the legendary pure land of bliss? You also know that it's just a legend, an excuse to induce people to cultivate seriously. In fact, no one has seen what the immortal world looks like, and the true immortals who occasionally descended to the lower realm have never revealed the secrets of the immortal world. But it's not that good. Since ancient times, there have been at least 800 if not 1,000 cultivators who ascended to the upper realm. The more ancient Desolation Age could not be counted. Among them, there were both righteous cultivators and evil cultivators. Moreover, after they ascended to the immortal world, they might not be able to reproduce their descendants, and the descendants might not be able to inherit the character of their predecessors. It's not surprising that there are fallen immortals. The key problem is how to deal with these fallen immortals in the lower realm. Is there no one in the immortal world who cares about this kind of thing? We can't confirm the attitude of the immortal world towards the fallen immortals. Because occasionally, true immortals descend to the lower realm, but they have never had in-depth communication with the cultivators, or even had a dialogue with them, so we can't ask them anything about the situation. Optimistically, perhaps they have tried their best to stop the fallen immortals from descending. Otherwise, the number of fallen immortals would be 10 times or even 100 times more than now. But Wang Lu was silent for a while and said, "But it's also possible that the immortals in the upper realm have no interest in caring about the life and death of the people in the lower realm. It's just like how human beings don't care about how much killing their children will cause by scalding an ant's nest with boiling water." Xian Emo said, 9 regions is the starting point of the immortal world, but it's only the starting point. The road of immortal cultivation is endless. As people explore the road ahead, the starting point of the past will only become more and more insignificant. Perhaps this is the reason why the upper realm has not descended many times in the past tens of thousands of years. Unfortunately, this continent may not be worth mentioning for those ambitious immortals, but there are always a few scum who enjoy abusing the weak. In short, we can't hope that the upper realm will interfere in this matter. In the fight against the fallen immortals, we can't rely on anyone but ourselves. So there are Dixian immortals like you? Xian Emo said with a wry smile, "The so-called Dixian immortals are actually just self-flattery to inspire confidence. The opponent is the immortals, who are at a height that hundreds of millions of cultivators in 9 regions can't reach in their lifetime. It takes too much courage to be enemies with them. What's more, our plan is far more radical than that." "Oh? Are you going to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots, and treat both the symptoms and the root causes?" "Well, it doesn't make any sense to simply gather forces to kill 1 or 2 fallen immortals in the lower realm. As long as the immortals in the upper realm still treat the lower realm unscrupulously, the fallen immortals will only emerge one after another. And every time we fight, we have to pay 10 times or even 100 times the price. For the immortal world, they only lose a scum that can't be cultivated. But in 9 regions, they lose the elites of the immortal path." "So, specifically, what did you do?" "We decided to challenge the upper realm, break through the sky, and ask heaven why it condones murderers. If heaven refuses to answer, we will find an explanation for it ourselves." What a radical idea. Even Wang Wu was amazed by the whimsical ideas of these Dixian immortals. Xian Emo sighed and said, if you have cherished people who died in the calamity of the fallen immortals, it is inevitable that you will have radical ideas. In our time, the calamity of the fallen immortals was one of the most frightening natural disasters in the immortal cultivation world. I don't know how many people suffered from it. But later generations have never even heard of the name of the fallen immortals. Wang Lu said, and then, after a moment of silence, he said, in any case, it must have been an extremely tragic war. Xian Mo said, it was indeed a tragic struggle. At that time, we gathered most of the elites in 9 regions and even united with the kings of the Western continent. We silently endured for half a year. When everything was ready, we tore open the passage to the upper realm, went against the great Tao of heaven and earth, and forcibly set foot on the land of the immortal world. Wouldn't that be a collective ascension? Without the test of the heavenly tribulation, a cultivator's magical power could not be transformed into pure immortal spirit aura, and thus could not stay in the immortal world for a long time. What's more, we gathered countless resources in 9 regions, not just to create dozens of immortals. In fact, our plan at that time was to a large extent a gamble. The dozens of us could not stay in the immortal world for a long time. No one could say what we would encounter during this time and what we could do. As a result, not long after we entered the immortal world, we met 3 fallen immortals. When they saw us, they were very surprised and attacked us without saying anything. We were forced to fight. In that battle, we paid more than 10 times the casualties and were crippled in just one battle. We were no longer able to carry out in-depth exploration. Even after thousands of years, when talking about that earth-shattering battle, Xian Mo still looked distressed. But after that battle, we also realized that there was no need to continue to explore. It was a mistake to pin our hopes on one battle. It only showed that we were still too naive and conceited. The number and strength of the fallen immortals were far beyond our imagination. It was not a problem that our generation could solve at all. Wang Lu nodded and expressed his deep understanding. Not long after they set foot in the immortal world, they met 3 fallen immortals. Moreover, when they met, they immediately fought. This could not be explained by bad luck. It was very likely that the current passage between 9 regions and the immortal world was in the hands of a fallen immortal organization. The world of 9 regions was completely reduced to their breeding ground and back garden. The resistance launched by Xian Mo and the other Dixian people, in the eyes of others, was like a beef cow that was unwilling to be left alone and jumped out of the cow pen. But we didn't despair. Even if this generation can't solve the problem, there is still the next generation. The cultivators of 9 regions have been making progress for tens of thousands of years, at least until my time. Therefore, we have always believed that in the distant future, 9 regions would have the power to protect itself. Xian Mo sighed and said, at that time, we quickly returned to 9 regions, and in the next 100 years, we did our best to mobilize the huge power contained in 9 regions to forcibly block the passage between the immortal world and 9 regions, trying to completely cut off the possibility of the fallen immortals coming. At the same time, we built the group of immortal tombs to preserve what we have learned in our lifetime, as well as the valuable experience left by countless generations of people in the struggle against the fallen immortals. I hope that future generations can benefit from it and take fewer detours. Upon hearing this, Wang Lu just shrugged helplessly and said, unfortunately, the future generations will probably let you down. Yes, when I woke up from my long sleep and saw the 9 regions today, I was indeed very disappointed, even desperate. After 10,000 years, not only did the cultivators not make progress, they were far worse than before. How can we fight against the fallen immortals? The blockade barrier that we laid at that time was, after all, only at the level of Dixian. For those genuine immortals, there must be some flaws. Therefore, it was only a matter of time before they came back to 9 regions. With that, Xian Mo revealed a smile and said, however, after seeing the 2 of you, I have a bit of hope for 9 regions. Perhaps today's 9 regions is not so hopeless. Unfortunately, this is just my own idea. Among the companions who received the resuscitation, the majority of them are dissenting. Chapter 588. Resuscitation companions? Do they have objections? Wang Lu quickly caught the point. This time, there were more than one Dixian resuscitation in the group of immortal tombs, and most of them were in deep despair about the current situation of 9 regions. Then, what are they going to do? Xian Mo said, on that day, we decided to retreat and lie dormant, pinning all our hopes on the future generations. It was a decision made under great controversy. It could even be said that our leader alone pushed it. Were it not for his high prestige among the group of Dixian and his obvious superior strength in the battle of the upper realm, we might not have given up so decisively. Wang Lu said, so now that they have come back from the dead, are they unwilling to be left out? Xian Mo said, no one has ever been willing to be left out. We raised the banner of Dixian and gathered the top experts of 9 regions at that time. Each of them is a living legend, how could we be willing to be under others? And if you haven't seen that era, you can't understand our unforgettable hatred for the fallen immortals. For us to give up our revenge is a more painful choice than death. At that time, our leader promised that the future 9 regions would be more powerful, and there would be rare geniuses that could not be matched by today's people. At that time, he would open the group of immortal tombs and take away our inheritance, and 9 regions would truly have the strength to contend against the fallen immortals. However, when I see it today, I only see that 9 regions is in ruins, the surrounding spiritual energy is exhausted, and the strength of the cultivators is weak. They live a befuddled life, completely unaware that the crisis of the continent is coming. Our sacrifice of enduring humiliation in the past is simply a joke. While speaking, there were several more people in the pale world. They all had different appearances, but without exception, they all had amazing power. One of the young men with raised eyebrows looked at Wang Lu and Wang Wu and said, Xian Mo, is this the person you fancy? Xian Mo corrected him, it's not me, but Brother Ming. Well, I do think he is worth looking forward to. Zhong Shengming is indeed formidable, more than 10,000 years ago, he was indeed formidable, but the group of immortal tombs has been silent for too long. His primordial spirit is not even complete, and he has split into 2 demon and god body. How could the judgment made in this situation be accurate? As for you, you've always had good foresight, but your heart is easily swayed. Once someone has done you a favor, it's hard for you to calmly make a judgment. This person helped you get rid of your inner demons, so it's normal for you to favor him. As the young man spoke, he completely overturned Zhong Shengming and Xian Mo's judgment. It seemed that Xian Mo could do nothing but feel helpless. Wang Lu turned to look at the young man, guessing that he was probably one of the leaders of Dixian's team in the past. Coincidentally, the young man also looked at him. With a glance, his eyebrows jumped slightly. Void spiritual root? You do have some tricks up your sleeves, but you've been cultivating for quite some time now. How come you're only at the King Pill realm? The cultivation speed of void spiritual root is extremely fast. In the past, Immortal Qin ascended to immortality in 20 years. Even if the surrounding spiritual energy in 9 regions is scarce, after more than 20 years of cultivation, you shouldn't only be at the King Pill realm. Moreover, what about the main path in your King Pill? Zhong Shengming's primal chaos heaven-splitting sword is fine, but what's the other half? The fusion of the 2 is simply a mess. Speaking to this, the young man could not help but become a bit angry. That day, I said that we must fight them to the end. Our lineup is at its peak, and it's a surprise attack, so it's not impossible for us to make a name for ourselves. But the boss insisted on pinning his hope on the later generation. And you all actually agreed. Upon hearing this, Xian Mo's face sank. Are you questioning his decision? Yes, I'm questioning it. What's so surprising about it? When he was alive, I constantly questioned it. Now that he's dead, and I've witnessed the decay of 9 regions, of course, I have to question it even more. You all worship him like a god, but I only regard him as an ordinary person. Xian Mo angrily said, Bai Zai, you're too presumptuous. Bai Zai laughed. Is this the first day you know me? I've always been this presumptuous. That's why the boss appointed me as his deputy. Because apart from me, no one else dares to be presumptuous. Xian Mo was so angry that his whole body trembled. His eyes turned to the people behind Bai Zai. What about you guys? Are you just going to let him go? No one replied. Bai Zai's face sank. Xian Mo, the boss is also a human, not a god or an immortal. It's true that he's more powerful than any of us, but it doesn't mean that he won't make mistakes. And when he makes a mistake, he needs someone to point it out for him. This is the meaning of my existence. I will constantly question his decision and go against him, so that he can always make a rational and calm judgment. Before you realize this, you have no right to accuse me of being presumptuous. Xian Mo somewhat painfully shook his head. He couldn't completely accept this statement. Bai Zai said, you guys have unreserved trust in him, but in the end, it's just that all of your responsibilities are pushed to him. Once the boss makes a mistake, it's tantamount to betraying all of your trust. And now, isn't it obvious? The boss's judgment is wrong. Betting on the future generations is undoubtedly a wrong bet. Xian Mo still wanted to argue, but Bai Zai interrupted him. I know you're very optimistic about this void spirit root. Yes, he is indeed very powerful. Although there are many problems in his cultivation, as long as he inherits the things in the group of immortal tombs, in less than a few decades, he would be able to keep pace with you and me, and even catch up with the boss's achievement. But, what can he do alone? No matter how strong he is, could he be stronger than those immortals who cultivate in the immortal world in 9 regions? We built the group of immortal tombs in the hope of creating an unprecedentedly prosperous 9 regions, a 9 regions with thousands of Dixian, where no one would dare to easily invade. Xian Mo, tell me, is the current 9 regions qualified to make people not dare to easily invade? Xian Mo took a breath but couldn't speak. No matter how much she admired her former leader, she had to admit that the current 9 regions was too different from what she had expected. So, are you going to give up? Give up? Are you kidding me? Bai Zai scoffed at Xian Mo's question. When have you ever seen me give up halfway? Although the setback this time is a bit serious, it's far from the time to give up. It's just. Bai Zai sternly said, from now on, we can't take any wrong steps. We have missed an opportunity, and I'm afraid there won't be a second time. I don't know why the fallen immortals haven't come in large numbers over the years, but I think it's only a matter of time. Moreover, time is not on our side. Compared with the immortal world, which is full of immortal spirit energy, the speed of cultivation in 9 regions can't be compared. What are you going to do? Bai Zai said, the first thing is to wake up all the survivors, then take out the treasures in the group of immortal tombs, and reassemble the team. After that, lead all the cultivators of the continent to fight against the fallen immortals. Although the odds are not high, it's already. Before he could finish his words, Wang Wu couldn't help it anymore. Lead all the cultivators of the continent? That's a big tone of yours. Before he could finish, Bai Zai interrupted him again, I know you are not convinced. I believe that all the cultivators in 9 regions are not convinced that they are being stepped on by a group of strangers who have been sleeping for thousands of years and then suddenly woke up. But think about it, with your little ability, once the fallen immortals come, what else can you do but wait for death? We at least succeeded in repelling the fallen immortals, but what about you? Right now, you're obsessed with the reputation in front of you, but you may ruin the future of the entire 9 regions. However, upon hearing this, Wang Wu just sneered. Once the fallen immortals come, what can we do? That's a good question. Beside Wang Wu, Wang Lu couldn't help but want to laugh. If this problem was placed on other people, it would be fine. But, to show off their achievements against the fallen immortals in front of the golden generation of Lingjian school? A group of Earth True Immortals of Unity Stage and Mahayana Stage gathered the resources of the entire continent to tear the sky and go to the immortal world. As a result, after the battle, they fled and hid themselves in the world. Unexpectedly, they had the face to show off such a record. In the past, Lingjian school, with the power of one faction, fought Mr. Feng Yu to death. The courage and wisdom contained in this was far more dazzling than that of Dixian. Perhaps the cultivators after the Age of Chaos were no longer comparable to their predecessors in terms of strength, but it was precisely because they were weak that they tried their best to exert their limited power to the extreme and achieve all kinds of miracles that were incredible in the eyes of their predecessors. In the face of Bai Zai's condescending attitude, even Wang Wu, who had always been cynical, could not hold back. For her, most things in the world were irrelevant, but the war 150 years ago was a holy war that no one could blaspheme. I didn't intend to take it out, but since I've been asked this question, if I don't show it off, I would be sorry to my long-dead big brother. Before the long-dead big brother had time to say anything, he saw Wang Wu take out a hand from her mustard seed bag. It was a human hand that had been chopped off at the wrist and had been meticulously maintained to this day without losing its vitality. When they saw that hand, everyone present was shocked. Although it was a dead thing separated from the body, the immortal spirit aura still lingered. Impressively, it was the hand of an immortal. Moreover, the immortal spirit aura contained bloody killing intent, which was the standard sign of a fallen immortal. The hand of a fallen immortal, you've actually killed a fallen immortal? Bai Zai was so shocked that for a moment, he could no longer give a speech. However, on the other side, Wang Lu could clearly see that it was not the hand of a fallen immortal, but his own hand. In the official history, at the last moment, Ouyang Shang introduced Mr. Feng Yu's primordial spirit into his own body, and then resolutely self-destructed, blowing his soul to death. However, when the other party's primordial spirit entered his body, he had already transformed part of Ouyang Shang's body into an immortal's body. Fortunately, at that time, Mr. Feng Yu was seriously injured and weak, unable to completely complete the transformation. Otherwise, Ouyang Shang's self-destruction might not be able to completely eliminate the weeds. However, because he had transformed the immortal's body, in that big explosion, Ouyang Shang's body was lucky enough to leave a few fragments. Wang Lu thought that those fragments had long been cleaned up by the people from Lingjian school, but he didn't expect that the largest piece actually fell into the hands of Wang Wu. You actually kept this thing? Wang Lu looked at Wang Wu incredulously and said, don't you find it disgusting? Wang Wu sighed when she heard this, and there was a hint of complicated emotion in her eyes. This is the most memorable victory medal in my life, how could it be disgusting? Wang Lu gently opened his mouth, but thousands of words were stuck in his throat. However, at this time, he saw Wang Wu gently smiled and said, moreover, from a utilitarian point of view, the immortal's hand has endless magical uses, it would be a pity to throw it away. For more than 100 years, the benefits of this hand have been endless for me. Wait a minute. What did you do with my hand? Chapter 589. The Hand of the Fallen Immortal. It seems that the reason why Zhong Xingming let you in is not entirely because he's old and confused. After seeing the spoils of war that Wang Wu took out, even the arrogant Bai Zai was shocked speechless. An object was better than 1,000 words. Although Bai Zai didn't believe that the 2 king pill cultivators in front of him, as well as the extremely weak later generation cultivators after the Age of Chaos, could beat the former Dixian team. However, Who told the Dixian team to not have such a good spoils of war at this time? However, Bai Zhe would not easily admit defeat. After a long silence, he said, I understand. For the time being, I admit that you do have the strength, but it doesn't mean anything. After all, it's just the remains of a fallen immortal, and it's only a part of it. Well, I didn't expect to convince you with this thing. Wang Wu said and then lightly retracted the hand of the fallen immortal. It's rare to resuscitation from 10,000 years of sleep, so it's unrealistic for you to willingly withdraw from the stage of history. However, there's no reason for us to give up the treasure that we've dug out with great difficulty just because of your words. Bai Zhe frowned and said, this is not just a treasure. I know that this also means the life and death of 9 regions. But similarly, as the contemporary cultivators of 9 regions, there's no reason for us to entrust our lives to you, these strangers. No matter how good your words are, after all, we are not familiar with each other. Bai Zhe sneered and said, then what are you going to do? Wang Wu said, since neither of us is convinced by the other, why don't we have a fair competition? Let's fight for the inheritance of this group of immortal tombs and the leadership in the future. Fair competition? Bai Zhe was surprised. He didn't expect the other party to come up with such an absurd idea. You want to compete with us? Wang Wu said with a smile, that's right. As for the specific method, it can be an arena fight, or it can be a league. In short, it can show the strength of both sides vividly in order to determine the more suitable candidate to inherit the legacy and hold the leadership. This way, neither side will have any objections. Bai Zhe was tongue-tied. After a long while, he angrily waved his hand and said, challenge the arena and organize a league? The crisis of the fallen immortals is imminent. They may come to 9 regions at any time. We don't have time to play games with you. Wang Lu said faintly, then you can also choose to give up everything and be willing to be the pawns of us cultivators of later generations. Since you don't want to waste time, then we'll compromise. Compromise with incompetent people like you? Otherwise, it will be a fair competition, Wang Lu said. In short, don't expect us to hand over everything honestly. Before Bai Zhe could get angry, Wang Lu said in a deep voice, we're cultivators who lived after the Dharma-ending era. Ever since we set foot on the immortal Tao, we've been living in an environment with scarce resources. If we want to reach the peak of the immortal Tao and ascend, we can't afford to make any mistakes or miss any opportunities. Even if it's a small profit, we have to haggle over every penny, let alone such a rich treasure like the group of immortal tombs. This is the way for us, the weak later generations of cultivators, to survive. No matter how great you, the senior cultivators, are, in today's perspective, you're just a group of dead leftovers. In terms of total strength, you're definitely not comparable to today's Wanxian League. Even if your individual strength is not as good as ours, you can't offset our numerical advantage. Let alone contend against the fallen immortals. If you sincerely want to protect 9 regions, the only choice is to make full use of the existing strength. And to use our strength, respecting us is a necessary condition. After this high-sounding speech, everyone present fell into silence. Only Wang Wu held back her laughter and secretly gave her disciple a thumbs up. He was indeed worthy to be an orator who could say any kind of fallacious reasoning and heresy. The way for weak cultivators to survive? How could he have the nerve to say it out loud? This was just bullying this group of old antiques who had stayed in the group of immortal tombs for more than 16,000 years. When they walked out of the group of immortal tombs and witnessed the luxurious life of modern people, especially the luxurious cultivation method of Xingjing sect, Wang Lu's speech about the way of survival was like a fart. However, Bai Zhe and the others, after all, didn't understand these things, not to mention that the argument about respect was not wrong. Therefore, after this high-sounding speech, Bai Zhe and the others had nothing to say. How exactly are you going to compete? I'm warning you again, there's no time to waste. Wang Wu said, "Of course, we don't want things to drag on for too long, but we don't have the final say on how to compete. This is a major matter related to the life and death of the entire 9 regions, so it must go through the collective decision of the Wanxian League." "Oh, stop nagging. We know that time is tight, but if we do everything recklessly because time is tight, it will only take longer to correct the mistake." Bai Zhe asked in a deep voice, "How long will it take for your collective decision?" "1 month is enough." "That's too slow." Wang Lu interrupted, "Then 2 months. To be honest, I think you're a very strange person. No matter how urgent the crisis of the fallen immortal is, it has been more than 16,000 years since the last large-scale outbreak. This kind of crisis that takes thousands of years as a unit, are you really in a hurry to solve it in 1 or 2 months? And more importantly, since you chose to sleep and hand over the responsibility of saving the world to the future generations, then you should have the awareness that no matter what happens later, you will not regret it. Your time is over, and everything that happens after that is our business. We're not in a hurry ourselves, so what are you in a hurry for? You are not like a person who has just woken up." Bai Zhe was immediately annoyed. "How dare you question me?" Xian Mo hurriedly advised, "Bai Zhe has always been impatient, and he has always been the opposition in the team, so it's inevitable that his words are harsh, but you don't have to doubt his character at all. He's a partner who has gone through life and death with us." Wang Lu sneered and said, "Such a person as a partner? No wonder you lost so miserably. You." Seeing that the contradiction was about to intensify, Wang Wu knew that she should come forward to end it all. The cooperation between her and Wang Lu lay in this echo of each other. Wang Lu was young and his cultivation base was low, so as a junior disciple, he could provoke them at will. She, on the other hand, had to take advantage of the situation to occupy an advantageous position in the negotiation and take the opportunity to resolve the contradiction to lead the topic in a direction that was beneficial to herself. Then, Wang Wu clapped her hands and said, "Then it's settled. 2 months later, we will organize an official team to discuss with you and set the rules of the competition, and then decide the winner in the fastest time. I know everyone is very anxious, but only by doing it step by step will we not waste time. How about it?" While speaking, Wang Wu ignored Bai Zhe and locked her eyes on Xian Mo. Xian Mo quickly nodded. "Okay, then it's settled." Wang Wu smiled and said, "Very well, then we'll take our leave first. Oh, by the way, there are still those children." Xian Mo said, "Luli and the others? We've already sent them out. We're not that despicable, we won't threaten you with hostages." "Really? That's good." Then, without waiting for Bai Zhe and the others to speak, Wang Wu pulled Wang Lu and disappeared from this vast and white world. When they left the group of immortal tombs, Wang Lu felt a faint chill on his back. Unknowingly, his clothes had been soaked in sweat. After walking out of the gate of the group of immortal tombs, he followed his master with slightly stiff footsteps, slowly walking on the streets of Plentiful City like a zombie. He completely turned a blind eye to the strange eyes around him, because at this moment, even when he opened his mouth to speak, he felt that his throat was a bit dry. For a king pill level non-phase cultivator whose body had already been thoroughly tempered, this was simply an unimaginable embarrassment. However, after a head-on confrontation with a group of Dixian, it was already an unimaginable miracle for him to bear such a slight side effect. After a long time, Wang Lu finally got rid of the shock of Dixian and took a long breath. This time, it's really thrilling and exciting, making people climax again and again. Really? I just feel that it's a little thrilling and exciting, you're the only one who has climax again and again. Next to him, Wang Wu lightly flirted with him. The pressure of Dixian was almost fatal for ordinary King Pill, but for the number 1 King Pill in 9 regions, it was just like the breeze after the rain. For Wang Wu's flirting, Wang Lu immediately sneered and retorted, "Tsk, you, a necrophile, actually have the face to flirt with me? Damn, you're the necrophile. When I said that I benefited a lot, I meant to comprehend the method of cultivation from the immortal spirit energy of the fallen immortal. Do you think I used it as a carrot? Then swear to God that in the past 100 years, you've never used that hand to do anything shameless. I say, do you really think I did something with that hand? Wang Lu said, with your moral integrity, everything is possible. Wang Wu stopped and stared at her disciple in silence for a long time. I say, you have to think about it clearly. If I really did something with that hand. Don't forget, although that hand originally belonged to you, it was later occupied by the fallen immortal for a time. That is to say, the emerald crown on your head is completely in my hands. Enough, I understand, it's my slip of the tongue. Master, you are as pure as ice and as clean as jade, a steel virgin who hasn't been moved for 10,000 years. At most, I would question your moral integrity, but I really shouldn't question your chastity. Your words are not pleasant at all. You make me sound like an old leftover woman. Now is not the time to be happy at all. With that, Wang Lu also stopped. Seriously, Dixian, the fallen immortal. The situation is too sudden, and the pressure is great. Wang Wu said with a smile, come on, don't say that you really didn't expect this day. When you and the fallen immortal perished together, you should have known that there were other people behind him, right? Moreover, it's not your little king Pill's turn to bear the pressure. The Wuxian League collects such a high fee from all the joining sects every year, so it's time for it to come forward and do something. How about this, I'll go back to the mountain and report the situation to the Tomorrow Sword Hall, you stay here. Wait a minute, it's obviously more appropriate for me to go back. When it comes to credibility, I'm much better than you. Credibility? Yes, you're young and vigorous, and your desire is vigorous. But you still have something to do here, so it's not easy for you to go back to the mountain, right? Something to do? What is it? Before he could finish his words, Wang Lu couldn't go on. In the distance, the beautiful figures of Lu Li and the others were clearly discernible. Damn it, when will this charaba come to an end? Chapter 590. In the Wuxian League, the management committee of the Tomb of Immortals excavation had held 6 consecutive meetings in 10 days. Each meeting was presided over by a supreme-level cultivator, and the participants were all famous tyrants. There were leaders of major sects, leaders of immortal cultivation families, respected seniors among the loose cultivators, and even many spirit beasts who had gained wisdom and occupied a mountain as the king. In the last few meetings, people even saw the figures of evil cultivators. Such a specification and density could be said to have never been seen in the past 100 years. The last similar meeting was when Xingjing's sect tried to promote its 9-region strategy through the Wuxian League. However, the successive meetings were still held without any result. If there was a meeting with a higher specification than the current one, it would be during the last great war of immortals and demons. The entire Wuxian League was in action, which was an unprecedented grand occasion. The management committee of the Tomb of Immortals made a big move precisely for the recovery of Dixian and the ensuing crisis of the fallen immortals. As a matter of fact, the fallen immortal was no secret among the high-level members of the Wuxian League. The tragedy of Lingjian School 150 years ago had long sounded the alarm for everyone. However, in order to maintain the basic stability of the entire immortal cultivation world, the news of the fallen immortal crisis had never spread. It was only mentioned from time to time in the standing committee meeting of the Wuxian League and dealt with accordingly. For example, the assistance from the Wuxian League could not go unnoticed for the Lingjian school to recover from the tragedy of almost being destroyed. When the young and the old were in short supply, not only did they not lose their reputation as a super sect, but they also received strong support in materials. In the end, in the face of the fallen immortal, the sacrifice of Lingjian school was remembered by everyone. However, the real urgent problem now was Dixian. The arrival of the fallen immortal would take at least 100 years, which was a crisis that belonged to the next generation. As the saying goes, one day in heaven is 1 year in the world. For those fallen immortals, it was normal for them to plan for an action for 300 to 500 years. Just like for those Supremes of Unity stage, it was not new for them to go into seclusion for 100 years. The recent meetings were to respond to the challenge of Dixian by coordinating the various forces under the jurisdiction of the Wuxia League, unifying their thoughts and avoiding fighting. However, it was not difficult to see from the frequency of the meetings that the progress of the meetings was not smooth. How could it be easy to convince those big sects to put aside their years of grudges and unite against the outside world in a short period of time? Moreover, it would take a lot of effort just to get them to accept the fact that they were competing with Dixian. On this day, another high-level meeting was held. The leaders of the Wuxia League and the excavation management once again gathered in the high-level meeting room in Fengdu City. After Supreme Hichu, who presided over the meeting, read the report aloud, some representatives quickly raised doubts. Supreme Hichu, for the time being, we accept all the assumptions put forward in your report, including the existence of the fallen immortals and the possibility that they may come to 9 regions and cause a disaster. But, because of this, I have to ask, is it really necessary for us to fight to the death with the Dixian people before dealing with the crisis of the fallen immortals? Since we're on the same level, and the Dixian are far superior to us in terms of experience and strength, isn't it better for them to lead the battle? Why add to the internal frictions? As soon as his voice fell, there were many voices of agreement. Obviously, these people had already discussed that they would rely on the number of people to strengthen their momentum. Supreme Hichu, who was sitting in the main seat, slightly glanced at them. However, just before he could answer, a young voice coldly interrupted and responded unceremoniously. Supreme Hichu, I think there's something wrong with the arrangement of our meeting. Even this kind of trash, no, plankton trash is allowed to come in and talk nonsense. We don't have so much time to waste on trash. Before he could finish his words, the person who had just retorted slapped the table and stood up. Who are you calling trash? Who else but you? You're just the acting sect leader of a middle-rank sect, a mere deity stage cultivator. Letting you attend the meeting is already an extra-legal kindness. Who gave you the right to speak here? Didn't your parents teach you self-knowledge? You've been cultivating for 500 years, haven't you realized the fact that you're a waste? You. Being rebuked, that person was so angry that his face turned pale. You're just a little king pill, how dare you? I am a member of the Excavation Management Committee, the discoverer and the opener of the group of immortal tombs, the trigger and coordinator of the Dixian incident. Any one of these identities, you can't even dream of them in your entire life. Every word that I say to you should be cherished and engraved in your heart, and as a family heirloom, pass it down from generation to your doomed group of good-for-nothing descendants. The premise is that you can find a stupid enough woman to give birth to your descendants. Just as the imposing manner of Wang Lu in the front row of the venue became more and more fierce, Supreme Hichu waved his hand and said, Wang Lu, that's enough. Wang Lu immediately shut his mouth and did not speak. At the same time, the person who had been rained with dog blood by him was directly sent out of the venue. The venue was quiet for a while. Seeing that everyone had stopped talking, Wang Lu put on a smile and said, Isn't it better to do this earlier? These small sects trash shouldn't be allowed to come in. The inheritance of the group of immortal tombs and the leadership to prepare for the crisis of the fallen immortal are beyond their reach. For them, instead of spending their own strength to fatten our several big sects, it's better to show their sense of existence, show off their lofty and unyielding character, and at the same time hug the thigh of Dixian. This kind of trash will only hold us back, there's no value in fighting for it. Wang Lu. Supreme Hichu's 2 long eyebrows trembled slightly. That's enough. Wang Lu refused to let it go. You are the leader of the Wuxia League, a person of virtue and prestige, and your words and deeds are bound by rules and regulations. But I'm different, I'm a junior, a mere king pill guy. Even if I say something wrong, it can be regarded as a child's talk. Therefore, I might as well say some ugly words first. Today, in addition to the members of the two committees, there are also some leaders of middle rank and even low rank sections. What I said just now is actually to you. Although it's unpleasant to hear, ask yourselves, don't you think that this fight with Dixian has nothing to do with you? Because, in the end, the fat meat of the group of immortal tombs is the meal on the plate of those top-rank sects, and you can only drink 2 mouthfuls of leftover soup at most. I have to say, you're right. Even if we win the battle against the Earth Immortals, it's not your turn to enjoy the most delicious spoils of war, because you can't make enough contributions. In addition to having a large number of people, no matter in which aspect, you're completely different from those top-rank sections. Giving you a few mouthfuls of leftover soup is already merciful. Before he could finish his words, Wang Lu's vision blurred and he was sent out of the venue. As a member of the Excavation Management Committee and the Plentiful City Management Committee, among the people present, only Supreme Hichu had the qualification and ability to directly expel him. After he too made his move, there were a lot of discussions in the venue. The leaders of the small and medium-sized sects had different expressions, but most of them were happy to see it happen. Wang Lu's spicy and even vicious words were difficult to digest even for those who were successful in cultivation. More importantly, they couldn't tell whether those were the words of Wang Lu alone or the collective opinion of the Wuxia League Excavation Management Committee. Hichu Daoran acquiesced in his endless words. Was that implying that he was supporting him? If Hichu Daoran also had the same intention, then the following days of these small and medium-sized sects would be very difficult. At that time, in order to protect themselves, they would have to make some unpleasant moves. Fortunately, Hichu Daoran finally forcibly expelled Wang Lu. It seemed like he didn't want the relationship with the many small and medium-sized sects to become stiff. Therefore, he chose to sacrifice Wang Lu. Being driven out of the venue like this was quite a shameful thing. At the same time, the Xingjing sect elder beside he too was also slightly hesitant. Using primordial spirit, he whispered, "Senior brother sect leader, Wang Lu is, after all." However, he too only chuckled. That kid has been noisy for so long. His words are high-sounding, but in fact, none of them are sincere. He doesn't want to help me say the ugly words first, he's simply impatient sitting here and begging me to let him out. Huh? The Xingjing sect elder said incredulously, in such an important meeting, he actually, I heard that he recently encountered some particularly thorny private matters. Thorny private matters? It's good to be young. Senior brother? Let's not talk about him first. Humph, that kid looks down on us, the old seniors, too much. Does he think that only a little guy like him dares to speak bluntly? What a joke. Then, Supreme He too ended the conversation in the primordial spirit, coughed, and said. What Wang Lu said just now is exactly what I mean. Suddenly, the audience went into an uproar. He too ignored the discussion of the crowd and directly said, I know that everyone in the meeting has their own plans. For the benefit of the sect, for the benefit of the individual, these are all understandable. But now, the matter is of great importance, so there is no time to coordinate and weigh the interests of each party present. Therefore, I will only say the conclusion, and everyone has the right to accept it. To put it simply, today, I called you here, not to discuss, but to inform. Supreme is a straightforward person, which saves us a lot of trouble. The excavation management has held a series of meetings in the past few days. Presumably, they have already discussed a mature plan with the major high-rank sections. During this period, we have never had the opportunity to speak. Until today, Supreme is even more outspoken, so we can only accept it. In the eyes of the Wuxian League, these small and medium-sized sects, are really worthless. That being the case, he too coldly said, your value is reflected in the amount of your contribution. If your contribution is high, it doesn't mean that you can't eat the meat. If your contribution is low, even the 5 greats of the Wuxian League don't have the right to enjoy the spoils of war. You can choose not to help, but if you dare to obstruct us, or even take advantage of the opportunity to join Dixian's side, the Wuxian League will let you see what happens to traitors. When Daoist He too said these words with the power of a supreme, many of the heads of the sects present only felt a great shock to their hearts and minds, losing all their 5 senses, and an indescribable sense of fear drowned them like a tide. When they regained their senses, the meeting had already ended. Chapter 591. Yo, Wang Lu, why are you here? Aren't you supposed to be in a meeting? On the streets of Plentiful City, the greetings from an acquaintance made Wang Lu's anger boil in an instant. His always calm face became distorted, and blue veins appeared on his forehead. Wang Wu, you still have the face to appear in front of me. As he spoke, a sharp primal chaos sword chi bloomed from his fingertips and stabbed behind him. However, as soon as the sword chi shot out, Wang Lu had no choice but to take it back. Because there was no white-clothed figure behind him, only a piece of paper floating in the air, a kind of letter paper that could transmit sound, Wang Wu really didn't have the face to appear in front of him and directly used a letter paper instead. With the sharpness of the primal chaos heaven-splitting sword chi, it was easy to shatter a piece of sound transmission letter paper. Similarly, it was also easy to shatter the pedestrians and buildings behind the piece of paper. Wang Lu didn't want to start a massacre on the bustling streets of Plentiful City, so he had to take back the sword chi. The backlash was very uncomfortable. Sure enough, young people have a strong desire and do things impulsively. It's just that, isn't it a bit inappropriate to shoot me in the face when we meet? Wang Lu spat, you bitch. Hey, isn't it inappropriate to say that I'm your main concubine? Less nonsense, you have now been promoted to a cold palace concubine. Don't be so cold and ruthless. I helped you deal with the conflicts in the harem before. Didn't I handle it well? Those girls who were about to fight have settled down. Well, your telepathic finger has indeed improved again. You can make them obedient with just a flick of your finger. Next time, I will find a group of Kunlun slaves to have a good in-death exchange with you. Are you sure? The emerald crown on your head is in my hands. Damn it, sooner or later I will divorce you, bitch. I can divorce you, the property will be divided equally. I'd rather donate it to charity. I'm going to open a charity hall. Donations are welcome. The two of them wrangled passionately for a while until the pedestrians on both sides of the street began to move away. Only then did they temporarily stop and enter the main topic. The piece of paper that Wang Wu used to transmit her voice was no longer as thin as before. It was now heavier, and there was a line of red words at the top, Lingjian school document to show its authority. First of all, I bring the greetings of the elders of the Heavenly Sword Hall. During this period of time, you have been fighting alone on the front lines. It must have been hard on you. Wang Lu immediately scolded, they also know that I'm working hard. A mere disciple of King Pil had to face a group of true monarch-level sect leaders and elders all day, chatting and laughing with them. Those old bastards from the Heavenly Sword Hall are really capable of doing this. You are the excavator of the group of immortal tombs, the trigger of the Dixian incident. Your weight is of great importance, and your status can't be measured by your stage. Now that the excavation management has organized a meeting, you are already in the top 10 of the standing committee. With that, the piece of paper that Wang Wu used to transmit her voice turned white, and her tone also became frivolous. Moreover, on the other hand, the elders of the Lingjian school are, after all, hindered by their reputation, so there are a lot of things that are not convenient to say directly. Therefore, I can only ask you to be a mad dog. In any case, your reputation in the Wanxian League is similar to this. That's why people are so stupid that they can't understand my elegance. Among the younger generation of cultivators, Wang Lu's prestige was like the sun in the sky. Especially after triggering the Dixian incident, he had already overwhelmed Shengjing sect's Qianghua. It was just that, although his reputation was great, the controversy was not small. Unlike the near-perfect image of Qianghua who was supported by Shengjing sect, Wang Lu's reputation was based on one unconventional sword victory after another. Since his debut, he has been subjected to controversy. For example, he won the lead disciple title against Lu Li in the sect's grand competition, which made countless people in the world who cherished flowers unable to calm down. Coupled with Wang Lu's unruly character, as well as his unparalleled verbal skills, after several days of excavation management meeting, too many people had seen the elegant demeanor of this disciple of the King Pill who dared to treat him as an equal. Thus, under his great reputation, Wang Lu gained the nickname of Spirit Sword Mad Dog. However, he too and the other several old things also know how to make the best use of the situation. During this period of time, I spoke bluntly in the meeting, more or less because of the acquiescence of he too, Tian Luan, and the others. Their pursuit is slightly different from that of Lingjian school, but everyone wants to form the competition plan in the shortest possible time, so it can be considered as each taking what they need. At present, this plan has already taken into account the interests of Lingjian school to the greatest extent, and it is also the most likely to be accepted by Dixian. Although it has not been finalized, we might as well prepare in advance according to the plan. Upon hearing this, Wang Wu curiously asked, "What exactly is the plan that you guys have decided on?" "You, this guy, obviously you're in Plentiful City, don't you know how to understand the situation? There should be a lot of gossip circulating in the city these days. In short, the main theme of the competition plan with Dixian is a one-on-one fight." "One-on-one fight? Are you guys sick in the head?" Wang Lu explained, according to common sense, the advantage of Wanxian League lies in its large number of people, occupying the resources of the entire 9 regions. And the advantage of Dixian lies in its high enough stage. Dozens of Dixian-level experts are almost equivalent to the entire high-level power of Wanxian League, not to mention that they have mastered a lot of lost secret techniques. Therefore, for us, the most advantageous plan is not to limit the number of people in a big fight, and the most disadvantageous is to fight alone. But in fact, this is a trap. The number of Dixian seems to be small, but they control the group of immortal tombs. Any one of them has a huge immortal dreamland, or even a group of immortal dreams. For example, that Xian Mo controls the entire country of women with his own strength. In addition to the main immortal dreamland of Ask the Heavens that we have broken through, there are 7 or 8 branch dreamlands. If the cultivators in these immortal dreams are superimposed, the number would be extremely terrifying. And the combined power of dozens of Dixian's immortal dreamland can even surpass the entire Wanxian League. After all, the foundation of the group of immortal tombs lies in the Feng Shui line of 9 regions, and the power of the Feng Shui line of 9 regions can be said to be endless for cultivators. Wang Wu said, "That analysis is reasonable, but in a one-on-one fight, the Wanxian League also does not have any advantage." Well, from the previous situation, the strength of Xian Mo alone is not below that of the leaders of the 5 uniques of Wanxian League. As for the most powerful ones, such as Bai Zhe who put all his attribute points on the brain damage, I'm afraid they are above anyone else. Therefore, in a one-on-one fight, we can't just foolishly fight to the death, we have to pay attention to skill. Are you going to set a restrictive condition? For example, suppressing the stage? Wang Lu said, "Yes, that's the basic idea. After the Age of Chaos, because of the thin surrounding spiritual energy, it is difficult for cultivators to compare with their predecessors in terms of stage. For example, there is no Mahayana stage cultivator in 9 regions. But because of the thin surrounding spiritual energy, we will try our best to make good use of the scarce resources. Therefore, in the same stage, our strength may be stronger. If we can limit the one-on-one fight to the same stage, we have a chance of winning. Of course, without an actual comparison, no one knows if the result can be as desired. Perhaps for those Dixian, the abundance of spiritual energy in their cultivation allows them to carry out more experiments to perfect the cultivation system. Wang Wu pondered for a moment. Do you think they will accept this kind of restriction? There is no reason to refuse, as long as they admit that they are the same as each other and can clearly realize that cooperation is the main premise. The essence of this fight is a competition, not a fight. And any competition can only be carried out under enough restrictive conditions. In addition, in this fight, one is to compete for the real inheritance hidden by the Dixian in the group of immortal tombs. For example, the 5-blood spirit crown of the demon race, or Xian Mo's rouge tears. These are the most precious treasures that cannot be automatically synthesized by the group of immortal tombs. The number is limited, and the significance is great. Secondly, it is the leadership in the future war. And no matter which one, it can't be proved by the size of the fist alone. In theory, even those self-proclaimed Dixian cultivators are still weak in the face of the real immortals of the lower realm. Therefore, the simple pursuit of power is an evil path. How to make more effective use of existing resources is more important. And the hierarchical competition is undoubtedly a better measure of this ability. With that, Wang Lu let out a long sigh and then said with a smile, "What do you think? Can this argument convince the Dixian?" Wang Wu thought for a moment. It's useless to rely on words alone. If the conditions are disadvantageous to them, even if the disadvantageous factor is only a little bit, they have no reason to accept it. Therefore, it's best to add a little stimulation so that they have to accept it. Wang Lu nodded. You mean it's better to provoke them than to invite them? That's a good idea. After a month, when I negotiate with the Dixian, I will provoke them that no one can break your defense in the King Pill stage. No, I can also relax the restriction to Yuanying stage. At that time, as long as they still have the pride of Dixian, they will definitely accept my challenge. And after they lose, they will no longer have the initiative in this matter. F***ck, you can't just casually push me out to be a target for others. Rest assured, I will apply for a special budget for you. Then I have no objection. But, if you want to take this kind of crooked path, you might as well bet with them. No one can win against you in cursing in 9 regions language. Wang Lu said with a smile, this has been included in my plan. This time, the fight with the Dixian will be a test and comparison of the comprehensive quality of the 2 generations of cultivators, so I will not miss any detail. Not to mention the skill of swearing in the street, in the preparation of the implementation plan, mahjong, writing, singing, and even bed skills should be included in the competition. In a sense, this can be regarded as playing the numerical advantage of the union of 10,000 immortals. Very well, then I look forward to the day when the fight officially begins. Chapter 592. This is your plan? What a joke. In the group of immortal tombs, after reading the proposal submitted by Wang Lu, Bai Zhe directly threw it to the ground. Wang Lu nonchalantly picked up the proposal, wiped the dust off it, and said, I won't stop you from laughing like an idiot. But this is the final plan of our Wanxian League. Bai Zhe said in a deep voice, then it seems like you don't have any sincerity to speak of. Sincerity? Wang Lu laughed. Do you mean sincerity or following your wishes? You Dixian have the advantage of growing up in a good environment and having strong individual combat power. That's why you want us to fight you head-on, and then everyone will lose badly, and finally hand over all the resources we've accumulated for thousands of years to you. If you can't get what you want, you'll accuse us of being insincere. This bandit's logic sure is practiced. Bai Zhe sneered and said, even if we lose badly, we can only blame the incompetence of the younger generation cultivators. No matter how incompetent you are, it's not your turn to bark at a stray dog that has been sleeping for 10,000 years. What did you say? I say, since you insist on not cooperating, why don't we just throw everything aside and fight to the death? I remember a bald senior from the Zen sect once said, to resist foreign aggression, one must first pacify internal affairs. I think it makes a lot of sense. In front of a great enemy, if there are still people like you who don't know what's good for you and don't know what's good for you in the heart of our territory, it will really make us unable to eat and sleep in peace. Bai Zhe laughed heartily. Alright, I've long been annoyed by you bunch of arrogant juniors. Wait, there's no need to be so hostile. Seeing that a war was about to break out in the group of immortal tombs, Xian Mo promptly appeared and interrupted the war between Wang Lu and Bai Zhe. Our interests are the same, so there's no need for us to fight to the death. That's why our Dixian alliance is willing to reach an agreement with you through a competition. However, isn't your plan a little too childish? It's fine if you say it's a literary competition, but what's the point of including poetry, zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting? Furthermore, they even wanted to compete in bed. This was too absurd. This method of battle is completely advantageous to your side. What's more, even if it's a martial arts competition, you still want to divide the competition into King Pill, Nascent Soul, and other realms. You're limiting the cultivation realms of the participants. This is too unfair to us. Wang Lu said, I don't think it's a trifling matter to divide the competition into a civil and a martial competition, and also to divide it into several sub-arenas according to different realms. If you think that the zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting should not be included in the scope of the competition, it only means that you are narrow-minded. There are 3,000 great Daos in the world that can lead to the immortal realm. How do you know that these unorthodox Daos are useless? If you only seek the Tao of killing, then sword cultivators would be enough in the world. Where would the Yin-Yang sect, beast-taming school, and so many other sects come to be? What's more, all of you Dixian are grandmasters with profound attainments in the outer Tao. For example, Senior Xian Mo, you are a grandmaster in the field of religious studies. Why do you have no confidence in the competition of the outer Tao? Xian Mo was rendered speechless by Wang Lu's rebuttal. Indeed, as Dixian, they should have the upper hand in the duel whether it was the cultivation of the immortal path or the unorthodox Daos. However, she always felt that there must be some conspiracy behind this proposal. At the very least, it's too unfair to compete based on realms. Fair? Wang Lu smiled when he heard this. His gaze swept across the surroundings, only to see that other than Bai Zhe and Xian Mo, the rest of the Dixians seemed to have the same feeling. I didn't expect to have to explain this concept to people again. What a cliché. Listen carefully. Before you argue about the concept of fairness, can you first give a clear definition of what fairness is? Xian Mo pondered for a moment. Fairness is impartiality, right? Wang Lu laughed. Nonsense. Impartiality? Then, is the drawing fair? It's absolutely impartiality. Everyone's probability of winning is the same, be it the Dixian or the beggars on the street. Everyone is treated equally. Do you think the drawing is fair? This. Xian Mo was stunned. Then, he shook his head. Of course the drawing is not fair. Because, at this point, Xian Mo was stuck again. She actually couldn't say why the drawing was unfair. Because it was unfair to treat the beggars and the Dixian equally? But wasn't it the greatest fairness to treat them equally? It's very simple. Because the result of the drawing is of no help in solving the problem. Wang Lu sighed and explained, the prerequisite of fairness is efficiency. If something can't achieve its goal, it can't be called fair. The purpose of the imperial examination system in the mortal world is to select knowledgeable and capable people. Therefore, it's fair to be an official with excellent learning, but it's unfair to spend money to buy an official position. If it's an auction to raise money, then it's fair to the highest bidder. Similarly, the purpose of our competition is not simply to determine the winner. Winning or losing is just a means. The fundamental purpose is to select people who are more suitable to inherit the inheritance and lead the overall situation. So, ask yourselves, do you really think that relying on your advantage in the realm and using force to overwhelm us, the younger generation, can prove that you are more suitable? Xian Mo was silent for a long time and then shook her head. The advantage of the fallen immortals in terms of realm is absolute. They are immortals who have ascended to immortality. Our chance of winning lies in using our limited realm to complete the cross-stage challenge. Therefore, the tone of the competition should also be based on this, competing with the ability to display the same realm. Before Wang Lu could finish his words, he heard Bai Zhe sneer and said, "You're the one who's absurd. According to your logic, if there's an invincible king pill cultivator in the king pill stage, do we, the ascending stage Dixian, have to bow down to a king pill? If you have the ascending stage, but can't defeat a genuine king pill cultivator in the king pill stage, you should indeed bow down to him. Because this king pill cultivator's ability to control power is even higher than you, the Dixian. What's more, with this group of immortal tombs and the many secret treasures left by you 16,000 years ago, it's not difficult to achieve a breakthrough in the realm, right?" Xian Mo said softly, "Indeed, if all the secret treasures in the deepest part of the group of immortal tombs are taken out, even a mortal without any cultivation base can advance by leaps and bounds to the Mahayana stage in a short period of time. Realm does not explain the problem. In terms of fairness, it's more appropriate to compete in different realms." Bai Zhe angrily said, "Xian Yu, whose side are you on? They're obviously acting shamelessly." Wang Lu leisurely said, "Now you're the one who's clearly afraid, aren't you? Without the advantage of the realm, you don't dare to face us, the younger generation. Speaking of which, your despicable behavior is exactly the same as those fallen immortals in the lower realm." Bullshit. Although Bai Zhe was impatient, his stance against the fallen immortals was also the most firm. Wang Lu's words were really shameful to him. "Then do you have the guts to try it yourself? Let's see if you can defeat us, the younger generation, with your Dixian cultivation base while suppressing your own realm. Let's make a bet. If you win, then our plan will be invalid, and everything will be according to your rules. If we win, you, as the acting leader of the Dixian team, will accept our proposal on behalf of everyone. How about it, do you dare to bet?" "What a joke, why wouldn't I dare?" As soon as Bai Zhe's voice fell, his whole body froze on the spot. Then, he glared at Xian Yu and said, "Are you trying to goad me? Ha ha ha, otherwise, how could it be a trick to tease a dog? In short, since you've agreed, you're not going to go back on your word, right?" Bai Zhe coldly snorted. Of course, he would not go back on his word. If the previous recklessness could be said to be temperamental, then the blatant breaking of the promise was a character problem. The Dixian team could follow a reckless leader through fire and water, but it was impossible to follow a despicable person. Therefore, after Bai Zhe calmed down, he no longer cared that he was easily goaded by the other party. Because even if the other party succeeded in goading him, it could not erase the difference between a Dixian-level cultivator and a mere king pill. Even if Dixian completely suppressed his power to the level of king pill, his deep understanding of power and the application of many subtle skills made Dixian fully capable of crushing king pill. "Kid, since you want to die so much, I'll fulfill your wish. don't tell me that the stage competition has to stop. Wang Lu laughed and said, of course it's life and death. If you don't even have the courage to face death, how can you talk about immortal cultivation? That's good. With that, Bai Zai's eyes flashed, and suddenly, the situation in the group of immortal tombs changed. The huge spiritual power of the feng shui line was controlled by his primordial spirit, which formed a spherical space with a radius of more than 50 kilometers in the void. There were earth, mountains, forests, rivers. It was a comprehensive arena that could meet any needs. You have nothing to say about such an arena, right? Wang Lu looked at it for a while and then exclaimed, Dixian is indeed worthy, this is indeed the group of immortal tombs. Opening up an immortal cave is as easy as flipping one's hand. Okay, this is it. Then let's go in, what are you waiting for? Wang Lu shook his head. You seem to have misunderstood. The person you want to fight is not me. It's this one. With that, Wang Lu took a step to the side, revealing a beautiful silhouette in a snow-white dress. It's you? When he saw Wang Wu, Xian Mo gently covered his mouth and could not help but exclaim in a low voice. This mere king pill stage female cultivator was able to withstand the divine thunder from the sky, which left a very deep impression on him. If he had a king pill level fight with her, let alone Bai Zai, even if his boss was reborn, he would not have much of a chance to win. Ha ha ha, it's me, the Wanxian League super high-paid hired thug, the #1 king pill in 9 regions worth 10 million spirit stones, are you afraid yet? Although Bai Zai had not personally seen the power of the #1 king pill in 9 regions, seeing that Wang Wu was still so high-spirited in front of a group of Dixian cultivators, he knew that she must have an amazing skill. However, no matter how amazing it was still at the level of king pill. Thinking of this, Bai Zai sneered and stepped into the arena first. Standing outside the arena, Wang Lu shook his head and smiled. He then said to Wang Wu, millionaire, don't forget our commission. It's not easy to introduce you to this business. Chapter 593. The dignified Dixian was dragged down to the same level as a king pill level ant in a life and death contest. This was simply a disgrace to the Dixian world. The disgrace of Dixian, Bai Zai, waited for a long time in the arena that he built with his own hands, full of resentment, before he saw his opponent casually descend. Finally here? Bai Zai couldn't wait any longer. He didn't even wait for his opponent to take his stance, and had already called out his own immortal treasure. Of course, now that it had been suppressed to the level of spiritual treasure, even the immortal spirit in the immortal treasure was blinded and became muddle-headed. It was a golden seal. It was only as thick as a finger, but its bottom was engraved with complicated and dazzling patterns. Following the appearance of the seal, the surrounding heaven and earth spiritual chi underwent a drastic change. Hey, you're showing your card so calmly? I didn't expect you to have some good points. Wang Wu was somewhat surprised and praised. Bai Zai sneered, there's no need to hide the head and show the tail for a trash like you. Wang Wu said, I want to say that your good point is that you're stupid enough. Do you think I'll praise you for being frank? How shameless do you have to be to think about the enemy's praise? You. Bai Zai was able to cultivate all the way from the mortal realm to the peak of the cultivators, which naturally showed that he was outstanding. However, when it came to the battle of tongues, he was far from being comparable to the master of non-phase peak. I will torture you to death. Having said that, Bai Zai made the first move. An earth immortal expert could shake the earth and mountains with just a lift of his hand. The ground within a radius of a few miles shook and cracked under his movement. He fully demonstrated the power of an earth immortal. He didn't use more power than the king pill level. It could even be said that because of his pride as a Dixian, he suppressed his power a bit lower. If an ordinary peak king pill user could wield a power of 10,000, then a few special people could wield it in the tens of thousands, such as Wang Lu and Xiong, who were deluxe king pill users, could even accumulate up to 100,000. Therefore, it was understandable that Dixian Baizé suppressed his output to around 100,000. However, not only did he not refer to this highest standard, but he suppressed his strength to a level that was even lower than that of an ordinary king pill, at most 8 or 9,000. However, although the quantity was small, the quality was ridiculously high. The method of controlling the power was even more exquisite, and it was an eye-opener. None of this was beyond the scope of a king pill. Baizé had perfectly suppressed his power, but even so, standing at the height of Dixian and controlling a king pill level battle, it was still an absolute suppression for an ordinary king pill. This earth-shaking move was enough to make most of the king pill in the 9 regions blush with shame. As soon as Baizé made his move, he unleashed his full momentum, intending to win in a crushing manner. However, in the face of Baizé's full momentum, Wang Wu interrupted him with only one sentence. "Wait a minute." Boom! Baizé abruptly stopped his magical power from going berserk, and the surrounding cracked ground also calmed down. "What do you want to do?" Wang Wu lightly said, "I haven't said anything yet, and I'm not ready yet." "Why are you in such a hurry? Don't tell me you want to make a sneak attack." "Do I need to make a sneak attack to deal with you?" "Humph, that's hard to say. In short, I have to do some warm-up exercises first. During this period, please help yourself." "You?" "Okay, I'll wait for you for a while. In any case, you're going to die sooner or later." Thus, Wang Wu began the long preparation work. At this time, she fully exerted her advantage as a woman to the limit. Under Baizé's impatient gaze, she slowly took out a makeup box and then began to apply rouge and powder in a slightly rusty manner. After applying the makeup, she began to draw eyeliner, put on lipstick, and brush her eyelashes. Not to mention that in the arena, Baizé's blood vessels were about to burst. Many of the Dixian onlookers outside the arena also sucked in a mouthful of cold air. They had seen shameless people, but they had never seen such a shameless one. And Wang Lu's face also slightly twitched. "When did you ever put on makeup in the Spirit Sword Mountain? Even when you attended the foreign guest conference, you still put on makeup. You didn't even wash the wine stains on your clothes. At this time, you actually pretended to be a delicate woman who loved to be beautiful. Your chastity is about to pierce the sky, okay?" Xian Mo asked, "Is she using psychological attack?" "It's useless. Although Baizé is a bit reckless, he won't fall for this kind of trick. Or, for him, there's no difference whether he falls for it or not. If she bet on this, I'm afraid she'll be in danger." Upon hearing this, Wang Lu sighed and said, "Psychological attack? You underestimate her too much. To deal with Baizé, she doesn't need any psychological attack. Right now, she's purely flirting with her opponent, which has no practical significance." "Flirting with her opponent?" Wang Lu shook his head and didn't say anything more. Because even if he told the truth, it would be difficult to win people's trust. And the fact was more powerful than any argument. As long as they continued to watch, they would naturally know the power of the number 1 king pill in 9 regions. Of course, in theory, after seeing the strength of the later generations in the same stage, these Dixian should firmly oppose the division of stage. However, if they lost this fight too miserably, to the point where it was difficult to explain it with any reason, then it would be a good thing instead. Those who could rise up against the immortals in that era were by no means weak and incompetent. A tragic defeat would only double their desire to fight. Therefore, the Wanxian League spared no expense to hire Wang Wu to fight the first fight. In terms of actual combat ability, there were so many supreme-level powerhouses in the Wanxian League, so it was not her turn to come forward. However, the one with the biggest difference in actual combat power and stage was definitely her. If they wanted to beat the Dixian stupid through fighting, Wang Wu was the first choice of the Wanxian League. It was also because of this that Wang Lu could help her extort the sky-high commission of tens of millions of spirit stones. Next, it was time for her to prove her worth. Have you played enough? I can't wait indefinitely. After half an hour, Bai Zhe finally couldn't hold back anymore and began to urge her. The golden stamp in his hand was repeatedly turned dozens of times by him. Moreover, the blood totem you painted on your face, are you trying to create a visual illusion? Unfortunately, it has no effect on me, so don't waste your effort. Wang Wu didn't care about her painstakingly dressing up and being evaluated as a blood totem at all. She calmly wiped off all the decorations on her face with a handkerchief and then took out the emerald green bamboo sword in her hand. Bai Zhe said with a smile, "You want to fight me like this? You don't choose a favorable environment, and you don't take out your own spiritual treasure?" Wang Wu said, "Non-phase method adapts to any environment, and to deal with you, my thick, long and hard bamboo is enough. In short, it's much better than your short stamp. Courting death." With that, Bai Zhe could finally go all out without any scruples. This time, there was no earth-shaking power. Bai Zhe just pressed the golden stamp in his hand forward. The next moment, Wang Wu's complexion changed, and the emerald green bamboo sword in her hand also moved forward. At the same time, the sword began to grow. Between the bamboo joints, 4 branches sprouted, vaguely turning into a human shape. As soon as the human shape was formed, the whole bamboo turned into a cloud of flying ash. However, soon, Wang Wu waved her left hand, and not far away, a small tree rose from the ground and flew toward her. In mid-air, countless invisible sword qi repaired and transformed it into an emerald green wooden sword that contained the vitality of the whole tree. Finally, with a bang, it fell into Wang Wu's hand as a replacement. This move was performed smoothly, but the expression on Wang Wu's face became particularly serious. "Quite a good instant kill, I've underestimated you a bit." With that, Wang Wu waved her left hand again. In the woods, more than 20 trees were summoned by her magical power, and then each of them was transformed into a wooden sword, floating beside Wang Wu. Bai Zhe was also extremely shocked when he saw this scene. Never had he imagined that his sure-kill attack would actually be blocked by someone. His attack just now was extremely fast and without any warning, but that woman was actually able to react. Moreover, from the more than 20 wooden swords around her, even if he used the negation technique again, it would still be blocked. And judging from the power he used now, it was impossible for him to continuously negate her dozens of times. However, you're just looking for trouble by doing this. Obviously, you can die a bit faster. Now, let me negate everything about you bit by bit. As he spoke, Bai Zhe also summoned more immortal treasures, a set of 13 immortal treasures that were similar to the golden seal, but slightly different in size. Negation seal. Outside the field, there was a faint exclamation from the Dixian. Wang Lu asked Xian Mo, "What is that?" Xian Mo said, "That is Bai Zhe's Dao. He relied on the Dao of negation to walk all the way to the peak of the immortal path, and is only half a step away from ascending. It is very powerful. Simply put, it is to negate everything that he wants to negate. You see how he usually speaks and does things like this. As soon as you speak, he will immediately sing a different tune. If you throw out an argument, he will immediately refute it. In fact, that is the specific manifestation of the Tao of negation." Wang Lu narrowed his eyes. "You're talking about the Tao of Chinibu, do not underestimate him. With his temper, he was able to become the deputy of the organization. The power of the Tao of negation is really convincing to all of us. In this battle, he wants to suppress himself to the level of the King Pill. You have not seen the power of the Tao of negation to distort cause and effect, but even so, his power is not something that a cultivator at the level of the King Pill can compare with. I have fought with both of you, and I know that your master's strength is far greater than the average King Pill, but you will soon realize that choosing Bai Zai as your opponent was a mistake. Listening to Xian Mo's solemn words, Wang Lu also roughly guessed that Bai Zai's Tao of negation was a kind of concept-level technique. Its level was far beyond ordinary spells, and it could be called an immortal technique. This difference in level was a difference in quality, and it could not be made up for with quantity. It was just like a millionaire who could take away a life with a rough iron dagger worth 3 copper coins. Immortal techniques were techniques that could be used to crush others at a higher level. Since he had yet to comprehend the immortal technique in the immortal world, Bai Zai was indeed worthy of the title of Dixian. It was not just self-boasting to boost morale. Chapter 594. The situation in the arena was very depressing. There was no earth-shattering power, nor was there any reversal of the river or the sea. The arena that Bai Zai painstakingly built to adapt to the needs of the 5 elements was only a small part of it. First of all, Wang Wu completely gave up on the offense. In fact, she didn't have a good offensive method, she just used her non-phase method to consolidate her defense. And after Bai Zai cast out his negation seal, his moves became silent. In fact, in a real high-level contest, causing a large-scale change in the world was a bad thing. To disperse the limited power to meaningless destruction of the environment was a sign of insufficient power control. But in any case, the fight between Wang Wu and Bai Zai was really depressing. For the audience with poor eyesight, the two people were just standing in the middle of the arena, facing each other. From time to time, Wang Wu threw out the broken wooden sword in her hand and replaced it with a new one. Bai Zai, on the other hand, pressed a golden stamp forward after a period of time. The fight lasted for half an hour, and the two people didn't even move half a step. Only those who knew the inside story could understand the danger hidden in this depressing fight. Every time Wang Wu threw out the sword in her hand, it meant that she had suffered a fatal blow. And every time Bai Zai flipped the golden stamp, he exerted a higher level of pressure on the opponent. After another half an hour of seesaw battle, Wang Wu finally used up the wooden sword in her hand, and she didn't make a new one. Bai Zai raised his eyelids. Finally finished? Your patience is more amazing than I thought. Your jade mansion has formed the King Pill, so your magical power can be freely generated. However, the magical power that was negated by me will never be recovered. You've withstood my negation seal more than 20 times. As a cultivator of the King Pill, your patience is worthy of praise, but that's it. Next, don't rely on the wooden sword as a substitute. Feel the power of the immortal technique and understand the gap between you mortals and Dixian. With that, he reached out to pick up the largest negation seal floating in the air and thrust it forward. At the same time, Wang Wu staggered back 2 steps and closed her eyes. This seal negates your eyes. Bai Zai took a step forward and once again used the big seal. This seal negates your ears. This seal negates your tongue. One after another, Bai Zai deprived the opponent's 5 senses with negation technique and even sealed Wang Wu's King Pill. After the previous life negation failed, Bai Zai's style became more cautious. No, cautious wasn't the right word to describe him. He was just enjoying the thrill of shutting down his opponent bit by bit. This kind of negation actually consumed a serious amount of energy for him. More than half of the 14 seals floating around him became dim, but he still enjoyed it. Using less than 1/10 of the opponent's power, he easily forced her into a desperate situation and even tortured her like a public execution. This completely showed the huge gap between the Dixian and these useless mortals of the later generation. There was no more satisfying result than this. No, if he was only satisfied because of this, it would be too unbecoming of the Dacian's identity. Although he was a little tired now, using the power of the king pill to use the negation seal didn't just consume magic, he still decided to use the most luxurious method to draw the curtains on this battle. At the same time, the Dixian outside the arena shook their heads and sighed, feeling sorry for this result. If she didn't choose Bai Zhe, but anyone else, perhaps this woman with the king pill who was good at defense would have a different result. Her power was indeed far above the king pill's realm. In terms of the efficiency of using power, she was also superb, completely proving that the cultivators after the end of the Age of Chaos also had their strengths. Unfortunately, choosing Dixian as her opponent was still too much. In other words, Bai Zhe actually used the immortal technique in the face of a king pill level opponent, which was a bit too shameless. However, the result had been decided, and there was no room for dispute. Xian Mo looked at the silent Wang Lu and asked, "Is that enough? Don't you want to surrender on behalf of your master? Bai Zhe really doesn't know how to be merciful, he will definitely kill." Wang Lu shrugged. "Then let him try. If he can succeed, the average moral integrity of 9 regions will rise a lot." Upon hearing this, Xian Mo was stunned. He could see that Wang Lu seemed to have absolute confidence in his master. However, at this time, it was clear that Wang Wu had fallen into a desperate situation, and there was no possibility of a comeback. Although Bai Zhe had consumed a lot of energy, Wang Wu had been sealed to the point where her energy could not be consumed. Unless they changed their opponent and fought Bai Zhe one after another. However, he believed that apart from Wang Wu, the Wanxian League couldn't come up with any other king pill who could take more than 20 negation seals in a row. At the same time, Bai Zhe also firmly believed that he had won the battle, so he stopped his action a little. "Looking at the fact that you can take more than 20 negation seals from me, I'll give you a chance to surrender. I'll count to 3. As long as you surrender, I'll spare your life." Alas! Many people sighed from outside the arena. This was basically a cat-and-mouse game. Surrender after counting to 3? By negating all the opponent's 5 senses, she couldn't hear what you said at all, let alone open her mouth. How could she surrender? However, the next moment, Wang Wu's voice clearly sounded in the arena. "Idiot." A long-lost swear word, like a stone breaking the calm surface of a lake, shocked everyone present. "You!" Bai Zhe was taken aback and quickly pulled out a negation seal. However, at the same time, Wang Wu did not hesitate to reach out and call out a new wooden sword. The splendor of the green wood was full and bright. It was clear that the magical power attached to it was enough to rank it as a middle-rank magical treasure. Bai Zhe's negation seal suddenly could not be pressed, because even if he reluctantly implemented the negation seal, the opponent would quickly use the wooden sword as a substitute. The key question was, why could she continue to use magical power? In theory, her 5 senses and even the king pill in her jade mansion had been negated. She was already a waste that was inferior to ordinary people, so how could she still open her mouth to speak and even make a new temporary magical treasure? This question also existed in the hearts of all the Dixian people present. Only Xian Mo nodded in understanding. Exchange pills? In a general sense, the technique that targeted an individual or a single king pill was ineffective against Wang Wu. Because even if the king pill in her jade mansion was smashed, she could still replace it with a spare king pill. Wang Lu didn't know how many spare pills his master had in her hand, but it shouldn't be too much. With her current attitude, she would definitely sell the extra ones. But it shouldn't be too little, because no matter how unreliable this woman was, at least she wouldn't take her own life as a joke. To deal with Bai Zhe's spare pills, she was certainly well prepared. Next, Bai Zhe launched the negation immortal technique one after another in vain, while Wang Wu used the wooden sword in her hand as a substitute. Until the magical power of the king pill gradually declined, she would replace it with another one. At this point, Bai Zhe finally couldn't fight anymore. He looked at his opponent with an incomprehensible look. There was no doubt that from the beginning to the end, he was suppressing the opponent. The use of immortal technique made his consumption only 1% of the opponent's. However, the opponent's seemingly endless king pill made it difficult for him to sustain even 1% of the consumption. A dagger of 3 copper coins could kill a millionaire, but if this millionaire could be reborn infinitely, a dagger of 3 copper coins could buy thousands of them, which was enough to make people bankrupt. Bai Zhe was now on the verge of bankruptcy. The suppression of his cultivation base made him unable to use immortal technique freely. Although the magical power of a king pill level cultivator was far from endless, when Bai Zhe used immortal technique, the immortal spirit energy consumed was not so easy to replenish. He had to think of another way, at the same time. In the arena, Wang Wu licked her lips, seemingly unsatisfied. I have tasted the taste of negation, and the mystery of immortal technique is also engraved in my mind. It's really satisfying. So you can leave now, trash. While speaking, the expression of the number 1 king pill in 9 regions became as sharp as a sword in an instant. She waved her right hand and stepped forward. A cold and dense sword appeared in the void and was held in her right hand, replacing the wooden sword. Mysterious frost sword? Outside the arena, Wang Lu was surprised to see the sword that was destroyed by him more than 20 years ago, but was reborn from the fire. He couldn't figure out why this sword fell into the hands of Wang Wu. On the field, Wang Wu pushed this broken and rebuilt flying sword to the limit. The bone-piercing chill was as cold as a knife. Then, she straightened the sword and thrust it forward, and the killing intent rushed toward her face. Bai Zhe immediately flipped out his negation seal, trying to write off the sword that went straight to the root of the problem. However, just as he held the golden seal in his hand, the immortal spirit energy was ready to be released. The next moment, there was a muffled bang. Wang Wu's dash was blocked, and Bai Zhe's golden seal cracked in his hand. The violent immortal spirit energy crushed the right hand that held the seal. Bai Zhe ignored the pain and took several steps back in shock. Where did you learn the negation technique? It was not an ordinary spell that broke the negation seal just now, but an out-and-out negation immortal technique. It was the collision of the 2 negation immortal techniques that the negation seal, which had the qualification of an immortal treasure, was broken. However, the negation immortal technique was Bai Zhe's unique skill. Even the several fallen immortals that he had killed before could not learn it, so how could she? However, Wang Wu had no interest in answering him at all. She took another step forward and thrust her sword forward. Bai Zhe had no choice but to flip the negation seal again. However, this time, he held 2 of them at the same time. One was used to negate Wang Wu's sword chi attack, and the other was used to resist the opponent's negation immortal technique. Although he didn't understand why the other party could use the negation immortal technique, as the inventor of this immortal technique, he was confident that he would never lose to anyone in his old profession. Thus, he successively launched 2 negation seals, and then there were 2 simultaneous explosions. Golden dust covered his field of vision in an instant, and his entire left arm was swallowed by the violent immortal spirit energy. If it weren't for the heart protection mirror in front of his chest to protect his torso, even his heart would have been destroyed. As a king pill cultivator, Bai Zhe still had the means to repair his body. Chapter 595. Using the non-phase nameless sword to bounce back the immortal technique, his master's performance really opened Wang Lu's eyes. The nameless sword was a counterattack skill that bounced back the damage it received. In theory, as long as it was within the range of its own endurance, any damage could be bounced back. However, this was only limited to the same level of attack. At the level of immortal technique, it was difficult to say whether the non-phase method could work, because the level was too high, far beyond the scope of King Pill's understanding. For the incomprehensible attack, the nameless sword couldn't fight back even if it wanted to. Even for the number one person in 9 regions, King Pill, understanding immortal technique was like a fantasy. Even though Wang Wu's aptitude and perception were already at the top level in 9 regions, she was no exception. Therefore, not to mention that Bai Zai didn't understand Wang Wu's non-phase method in advance, even if he did, he couldn't guess that the opponent could analyze the immortal technique in the fight and use it against him. Because of this, even Wang Lu never thought of it. He thought that this battle would be a protracted bladder war. With a large number of reserve corps, Wang Wu would use her absolute advantage in strength to grind the opponent down. However, the result was completely unexpected. With an absolutely strong counterattack, Wang Wu defeated the opponent in 2 moves and won an unquestionable victory. The power of 10 million spirit stones was really formidable. Wang Wu was responsible for winning the battle inside the arena, while Wang Lu was responsible for expanding the battle outside the arena. According to the rules, please accept this proposal and study it carefully. The competition will officially begin in 3 months, and I look forward to the wonderful performance of the seniors. Wang Lu ignored the embarrassed Bai Zai after the defeat. He handed the proposal to Xian Mo and was ready to leave. Xian Mo took the thick file with a complicated look and didn't refuse. She was not a high-ranking leader in the Dixian organization, so in theory, she had no right to make decisions on behalf of others. However, everyone had seen Bai Zai's defeat, so she couldn't deny it. Even though Bai Zai himself didn't admit defeat at all. It's not over yet. I can still fight. I only used 1/10 of my strength just now, and I never said that I would surrender. Truth be told, Bai Zai had indeed used less than 1/10 of Wang Wu's strength in the battle just now, but that could only be attributed to his arrogance. No one forced him to restrain his power to the point where he couldn't even compare to the peak of King Pill. He was seeking his own death. Enough, Bai Zai. A black-clothed Dixian walked out and pressed his hand on Bai Zai's shoulder. Touched by the black-clothed man's palm, Bai Zai immediately stiffened and was unable to move. You have indeed only used less than 1/10 of your strength, but you have broken 3 negation seals in a row. If you continue to fight, you will only be humiliating yourself. As a Dixian, you should at least know how to be willing to admit defeat. Don't let others shame you. After saying that to Bai Zai, the black-clothed man turned to his companions and said, "The cultivation methods of the later generations of cultivators are indeed eye-opening. It is unheard of for a King Pill to be able to analyze immortal techniques. But I think such a miracle is the only one for them. During this period of time, everyone has woken up from their deep sleep. Everyone has seen the real ability of the later generations of cultivators. Even if we compete according to their rules, we still have an absolute advantage." The black-clothed man's voice was very cold. Rather than encouraging morale, it was more like he was repeating lines. After saying that, he said to Wang Lu, "Let's compete according to your plan. 3 months later, we will set up the venue and wait for you. I hope that after the competition, we can put aside unnecessary disputes and face the real enemy together." Wang Lu was stunned. "If you are so understanding, why aren't you the leader of the Dixian organization?" "Because I am a sinner." With that, the black-clothed man disappeared without a trace. That sentence of, "I am a sinner," also attracted a lot of Dixian people's pity. Obviously, there was a deep story behind it. However, what Wang Lu cared about was not the story behind it, nor was he interested in inquiring about what kind of heinous crime he had committed in the past. "I want to ask, he is not the leader, so does his words count?" Xian Mo nodded in silence. 3 months later, the Wanxian League and the Dixian would launch an earth-shattering contest in the group of immortal tombs. According to the competition plan announced by the management committee of the Group of Immortal Tombs, the Wuxia League would organize an elite team of more than 2,000 people, from Daoist Master King Pill to Supremes of Unity Stage, from the leader of the 5 uniques of the Wuxia League to the future stars of the middle rank sections. They would fight against the Dixian team, which currently had an unknown number of people. The competition was divided into 2 categories, civil and martial, with each having half of the weight. It was just that, the subject of the civil competition was very detailed. There were more than 1,000 items, including zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. The sub-items were divided into many sub-items according to age, stage, and so on, which was dazzling. The martial competition was less, but the weight of each item was higher. Especially the highly anticipated individual competition, which accounted for 1/10 of the total score of the entire competition. In the end, the spoils would be distributed according to the score of the 2 sides, including the composition of the management in the future war, the ownership of the ancient secret treasures in the Group of Immortal Tombs, and so on. If one side could win all the competitions in an absolutely crushing manner, the result would naturally be the winner takes all. However, according to common sense, the most likely result would be a mixed score, which meant that the 2 sides would divide the spoils equally, and the management would also be a mix of both sides. This result was actually the most ideal. Democratic decision-making might lack efficiency, but it was better than direct confrontation between the 2 sides. Of course, that being said, who dared not to do their best in the competition? For the Wuxia League, every victory must be won with all their might. The opponent was the Dixian team. Even if they suppressed their stage and limited their performance, they were still quasi-immortal level. Except for Wang Wu, that kind of freak, no one dared to guarantee their victory. If they were careless and the Dixian team won most of the competition, it was very likely that they would face the result of losing both sides. Therefore, this elite team of 2,000 people must be very cautious. The organization and gathering alone had already consumed a lot of time and manpower. The previous high-level meetings only determined the basic framework for the organization and operation of the team. For example, the elite team would be recommended by each sect, and different rank sects would have different number of recommendation places. Naturally, the 5 uniques of the Wuxia League had the most number of recommendation places. And this alone was enough to ensure that they could occupy the greatest benefit in the competition. However, in addition to the 5 uniques, the interests of other sects could not be ignored, not to mention that there were indeed some small sects that had quite a skill. Therefore, how to distribute the quota evenly and at the same time, take into account the overall fighting strength of the team, was a big problem. For this reason, the several standing committee members of the excavation management were so busy that they split their primordial spirits. At the same time, Supreme He Tu and the other high-level members of the Wuxia League also visited the big sects from time to time, threatening and enticing them to cooperate fully. The list of 2,000 people took a month before it was finally decided. In the following 2 months, the Wuxia League did not hesitate to transfer resources to strengthen these 2,000 people, especially for the King Pill and Nascent Soul levels. No matter how high their stage was, it would be too difficult to strengthen them in a short period of time. In addition, it was relatively easier to improve in a short period of time, especially for some unpopular events. It was full of the designer's bad taste. No normal person would waste time to learn those skills, and any person with a normal aptitude would be able to improve by leaps and bounds in a few months through intensive training. But for the Dixian team, they probably did not have that much time to waste. The total number of people in the Dixian team was no more than 100 at most. To cope with the thousands of events in the proposal, they would certainly be stretched, and it was impossible for them to have time to take care of these unpopular events. And although the individual points of these unpopular events were not much, the total points could not be underestimated. If the Wuxia League could grasp these points with a 90% certainty, it would be equivalent to the Wuxia League occupying a considerable advantage before the start of the competition. In this regard, they could only sigh at the genius of the designer of the proposal, which could not be thought of by ordinary people. Oh! Those junior cultivators sure know how to play petty tricks. In the group of immortal tombs, a slender cultivator looked at the proposal in his hand and uttered a cold laugh. Want to compete in knowledge? That's a good calculation. Unfortunately, when I rushed into the immortal world, I was seriously injured but didn't die, and now I wake up from my sleep. With me here, you guys can forget about winning in knowledge. The books I have read are more than the rice you guys have eaten. Bai Zhe first smiled, but then habitually retorted, don't be careless, although your knowledge is indeed unparalleled in the world, but, there's no but, Bai Zhe, are you questioning my strength? Of course not, I don't need to question my Dixian companions who believe in the way of knowledge. You're right, this time, they brought about their own destruction and kicked the iron plate. At the same time, on the other side. Listen, our group of people have poor root bone and have no hope to move forward in the path of immortal cultivation. However, now, the Wuxia League has placed high hopes on us, and we enjoy the luxurious treatment of the sect's genius elites. Therefore, in the next few months, even if we have to risk our lives, we must give full play to our only skill, complete the task, and get valuable points for the Wuxia League. In a quiet room made of ice crystals, 20 young cultivators from various sects nervously looked at the old man in front of them. Their hearts were all restless. Poor root bone and hopeless cultivation, what the old man said was right. They were indeed all waste cultivators from various sects, and they indeed only had one skill. However, the old man himself was the elder of 10,000 Arts sect, and his status was highly respected. The elder no longer said anything. He just waved his hand and placed a thick book on the table in front of each of them. The young cultivators flipped open the book and saw a dazzling variety of questions. Regarding the King Pill level cultivator, the following statements were incorrect. A. If the King Pill level cultivator is dissatisfied with the quality of the King Pill, they can recultivate by breaking the pill. B. A King Pill can fuse a variety of paths. C. To achieve the King Pill, one must pass the King Pill tribulation. D. To advance from Shudan to King Pill, the total amount of magical power increase is at least 3 times. Suppose there are the following 3 kinds of swordsmanship, which are autumn wind, summer rain, and winter cold. The various attributes and comparison table are. Try to construct a set of core method that can perfectly accommodate the 3 sets of swordsmanship. Try to use autumn forest grass, ambergris, and red glow pearl to refine the 3 flavors pill without the help of tools and special methods. In addition to the questions related to cultivation, there were also questions about zither, chess, calligraphy, and even daily necessities. The types of questions were all-encompassing, and the difficulty was also different. After these general knowledge questions, there were a large number of graph rule questions, numerical reasoning questions, and even astronomical calculation questions that made people dizzy. Elder, what are these? These are the challenges that we will face in 2 months. The questions will be given by the Heavenly Sphere Inquiry. The young people below were suddenly surprised. Heavenly Sphere Inquiry? Isn't that a supreme grimoire that is said to have endless questions? Yes, it's also one of the treasures of 10,000 Arts sect. At that time, the supreme sect leader will personally bring out the book, which will be controlled by him and the representative of Dixian. Under the prescribed mode, random questions will be issued to ensure fairness. However, the difficulty of the questions will be amazing. A young cultivator asked, is our task to get a higher score than Dixian in this competition? That's right, but the ancient Earth immortals are all knowledgeable people. If we want to surpass the opponent in this kind of knowledge, even if we group a group of bookworms who only know how to read books together, it may not be enough. Therefore, Fellow Taoist Wang Lu of the excavation management invented this set of exercises system, which can maximize the limit of pure knowledge, making the situation more favorable to our side. However, if we want to win, we still need to pay a great effort. From today on, each of us has to do 120 sets of exercises every day to adapt to this written test environment and increase the odds of winning. 120 sets. Yes, it's absolutely impossible for mortals, but those present here are at least cultivators who have embarked on the road of immortal cultivation. Such a small thing shouldn't be impossible, right? The young people looked at each other in dismay, and then lowered their heads to look at the test paper. The more they looked, the paler their faces became. 120 sets of exercises a day, even if they didn't sleep or rest, it meant that they had to do 10 sets in an hour. However, a set of exercises had more than 20 pages. If it was an ordinary person, just reading it once would take them half an hour, not to mention solving the exercises one by one. And even if they, this group of bookworms, were known for their keen primordial spirit and tenacious mind, to finish 10 sets in an hour, they would have to risk their lives to do it. Elder, I think, before he could finish, he was interrupted by 10,000 Arts Sect Elder. He clapped his hands, and a row of brackets appeared in front of everyone. On top of the brackets hung a glittering and translucent porcelain bottle. The mouth of the bottle was facing downwards, with a tube and a needle hanging down. This is the refreshing soup to maintain the high-speed operation of primordial spirit. It will be directly injected into your body. During the time of doing exercises, there is an unlimited supply of refreshing soup, so you don't have to worry about exhaustion. The young people's complexion began to turn pale, and cold sweat continued to pour down. Using refreshing soup to refresh the mind was indeed feasible, but the problem was, if they relied on drugs for a long time, they would be crippled. However, the elders' torture wasn't over yet. Every day, there are 120 sets of exercises, and the correct rate of each set must be more than 50%. If you can't reach this number, you will be given extra seasoning in the refreshing soup. Extra seasoning? Everyone was puzzled. If punishment was imposed on those who couldn't complete the exercises, it was easy to understand, but whether it was physical or mental pain, it would only reduce the efficiency of doing exercises. Wouldn't that make things worse? Humph, I know what you're thinking. Rest assured, I won't let you feel pain and be distracted. It's just that, if you can't complete the quota, there will be an extra autumn medicine in the refreshing soup. After the injection, the length of the male's penis will decrease, and the size of the female's breast will decrease. The change is irreversible. Dead silence. The elder coldly smiled a few times. Do you understand? In unison, they roared, understood. I guarantee to complete the quota. Chapter 596. At the same time that the group was struggling for the length of their whip and the size of their chest, under the jurisdiction of the Wuxia League, there were hundreds and thousands of similar groups that were doing the same. Hurry up! Hurry up! Didn't you guys eat? High up in the clear sky, a group of cultivators were doing their best to chase after a petite figure in front of them. The one flying at the front was a young girl wearing a tight purple dress. Her pretty ponytail was blowing against the high winds, but it gently stuck to the young girl's back, as if she couldn't feel the wind pressure at all. As the young girl flew forward, she looked behind her from time to time and urged them to catch up with dissatisfaction. Too slow. What the hell are you guys doing? Behind her, a group of cultivators complained, Senior Sister Lu Guang, you're too fast. That speed of yours isn't at the king pill level at all. Even if you go to the nascent soul group, it's still more than enough. How can we possibly keep up? You guys are simply frogs at the bottom of a well. The young girl named Lu Guang was so angry that she stomped her feet in mid-air. As her delicate feet vibrated, the sound of the air exploding echoed for dozens of miles. With this speed of mine, not to mention the nascent soul group, even in the King Pill group, it's not considered the best. If it wasn't for the team competition, I wouldn't even have the qualifications to participate. Listen carefully, the team competition is the only chance for us small and medium-sized sects to stand out. Whether our Imperial Light Cave can go one step further in the Wuxia League, this is the key opportunity. But if you guys have this kind of attitude, the Imperial Light Cave will never be able to be ranked as a high-grade sect. The young girl spoke with an imposing manner, but the fellow disciples following behind her obviously had other ideas. The advancement of the Imperial Light Cave isn't something that we, the enlightened King Pill, who have just left the disciple generation, can control, right? There are master and martial uncles working hard in the nascent soul group. Ignorant. Liu Guang angrily halted his flight. He turned around and said to his fellow disciples, the Yuanian group is full of monsters. Our Liu Guang cave is not qualified to stand in the Yuanian group. Master and martial uncles are indeed formidable, but let alone compared to those several abnormal Yuanian stage cultivators of Spirit Sword Mountain. Even the common top-rank sects, such as Flowing Cloud School, also have Daoist masters of Yuanian stage with astonishing speed. Thus, the advantage of Flowing Light Cave is very limited. Our core method only has the greatest advantage in the King Pill realm. Therefore, the sect has always placed high hopes on us. You guys must not be as lazy as you were just now. Got it. We'll work hard for the next 2 months. Previously, when she fought against the heaven in the immortal dreamland, she did not hesitate to break her golden core to fight against Baizhe. Although it seemed like nothing had happened, after all, she was still injured. The injury on her left ankle had not healed yet, so when she fully supported the non-phase sword defense, it was a bit inconvenient. Xionghua's kill immortal sword could once sweep a small world. At this time, her cultivation base had gone a step further, and she could concentrate the power of the kill immortal sword even more, focusing on one point. If she could not break the non-phase sword defense, then there was really no other way. After no one knows how long, the red light in the lava cave finally extinguished. Xionghua wearily put the kill immortal sword back into her jade mansion. Her feet softened and she almost staggered to the ground. That sword strike, she really went all out. However, the golden sword defense in front of her still stood despairingly. Even after bearing the full blow of the kill immortal sword aimed at the weak point, Wang Wu was still able to hold on. I say, you're clearly cheating, right? Did you really use 30% of your power? Wang Lu said and then came out from the dust cover of the lava cave. At this point, there was no chance of winning in a head-on fight. Originally, it was agreed that if Wang Wu used 30% of her power, as long as the 7 of them could break the sword defense, they would pass. However, in the face of the kill immortal sword, Wang Wu obviously showed her real skill, which was comparable to peak deity stage, or even higher. What could a few peak king pill cultivators do? Wang Wu's face was also a bit awkward. Just now, Xionghua's shocking kill immortal sword was simply against the heaven. Let alone 30% of her power, even if she used 50% of her power, she might not be able to withstand it. Therefore, she had to temporarily increase the upper limit of her power output. However, before entering the cave, she still confidently boasted to the other sex elders and the mysterious sky mansion, "These little bastards, with 30% of my power, I can block them for a year. I have defeated Dixian, so there is no doubt about my strength." When the Wuxia League chose me, they were hesitant about the 10 million endorsement fee, but now it seems that they have made a profit. Therefore, if you choose me as your product spokesperson, even if the endorsement fee is 5 million a year, it will still be a profit. However, in just half a day, her body was broken by a few little bastards. No, her power was broken. This old female king pill's face was completely lost. What a joke, I just used 20% of my power. Wang Lu sneered, if you have the ability, then show me the remaining 80% of your power. Wang Wu also sneered, I just used 2 king pill cultivators, guess how many reserve pills I have on hand? What the f***ck? Wang Wu also threw caution to the wind, why not? In short, you are still far from passing the test. Continue to work hard for me. However, after half a day of besieging, Xiaofan and the others were already exhausted. Even if Taoist King Pill's spiritual power was endless, she still couldn't withstand their crazy bombardment. Therefore, everyone's eyes focused on Wang Lu. Among the 7 people, only Wang Lu and Xiaofan were young cultivators. The other King Pill cultivators had cultivated for more than 50 years, and their overall strength was only a little bit stronger than these 2, but at this time, they all placed their hopes on Wang Lu. Wang Lu was the one who everyone expected, but looking at his master who had a stable sword defense in front of him, he could only sigh, sure enough, there are only tired cows and no fields that are damaged. We really don't have the strength to fight anymore. Wang Wu smiled, so, are you going to admit defeat? Wang Lu said, admit defeat? How can we admit defeat without using our ultimate move? It's true that we don't have the strength to fight a protracted battle, but it's still possible for us to use our ultimate move. Wang Wu immediately raised her guard. Although the cultivation base of the kid in front of her was less than 1/10 of hers, his real body was, after all, the legendary Big Brother. Most of her current achievements came from the legacy left by him, so she had to be even more vigilant against him. Who knew what kind of trump card he would use? Wang Lu reached into his arms, and in the blink of an eye, 3 mysterious sky crystals were clamped between his fingertips. Wang Wu's eyes suddenly changed, what do you mean? Let us pass, and these 3 mysterious sky crystals are yours. Hey, there's no reason for you to miss out on such easy money, right? Wang Wu looked like she was struggling. Wang Lu took advantage of the victory and continued to attack. Just now, Xiaohua's sword swept away all the detection arrays in the cave. If you don't say anything, no one will know what happened. So. Before he could finish his words, Wang Lu's eyes blurred, and the mysterious sky crystals in his hand had been taken away. So, you, Taoist Master King Pill, are indeed the hope of the Wuxian League. Congratulations to all of you for passing the test. After walking out of the lava cave, the expressions of Xiaohua and the others were still quite complicated. It was not glorious to pass the test in this way, but in the face of a peak deity stage defense, it was impossible to pass the test. And the price of 3 mysterious sky crystals was really not cheap. Wang Lu was indeed worthy to be known as the richest young disciple. He actually took out 3 million spirit stones without hesitation. Moreover, he was generous and forthright, paying for everyone, which was very different from the rumors of Spirit Sword Mountain's non-phase peak being stingy, insidious and despicable. While they were secretly admiring the generosity of this lead disciple of Spirit Sword Mountain, Wang Lu, who was walking in front, suddenly turned around. By the way, just now, those 3 mysterious sky crystals, you should reimburse me. What? Wang Lu righteously said, don't tell me you want me to treat you. The 3 million spirit stones will be divided among the 6 of you, so each of you only needs 500,000. Everyone here is from a famous sect, so you don't need to be short of money, right? Taking back his words, there were really no good people on Spirit Sword Mountain's non-phase peak. Chapter 597. In order to cope with the battle with Dixian 2 months later, the Wanxian League set up training bases in many places, among which, the lava cave of Royal Soldiers sect was one of them. King Pil, Yuanying, deity. A total of 3 groups of cultivators would participate in this special training to strengthen their attack ability in various ways. Not long ago, 7 King Pil members besieged Wangwu, which was the special training of the King Pil group. Starting from breaking through 30% of Wangwu's non-phase sword defense, they had to increase their attack power by more than 50% on average while maintaining the same level before the match. The special training plan was very strict. Every day, there was a corresponding task. If they couldn't complete it, there would be no rest and no supplies. However, in the King Pil group, the progress of cultivation base was often measured in years. To improve by 50% in just 2 months, the difficulty could be imagined. In fact, they were quite lucky to pass this test on the first day. If there was no special method, this group of people would not have a chance to rest until they fainted in the lava cave. Fortunately, in this group of people, there was a smart person who was good at passing the test. Now, this smart person was laughing in the bedroom of the training base. Ha ha ha, making money while leveling, this kind of good thing is rare to see in many years. Outside the lava cave, after the first day of training, the non-phase master and disciple began to divide the spoils. According to the previous agreement, during the training, I will take 30% of all the profits, so this mysterious sky crystal should belong to me. Wang Lu pointed at one of the 3 crystals in his master's hand. Wang Wu somewhat reluctantly said, "TSK, the strength is basically mine, but you can take 30% of the profit just by moving your mouth, this money is too easy to earn." Damn, you have a low IQ and can only use your stupid strength? If you want to make money without going through a lot of trouble and tiredness, you might as well sell your body. Wang Wu just lamented, with age, I can't sell it anymore. That's true, so do you want to consider selling it to me at a wholesale price? We have a criminal record. No, we have a predestined relationship. Sure. As Wang Wu spoke, she chuckled and lightly touched Wang Lu's cheek with her lips. Then, while Wang Lu was still in shock, she snatched the mysterious sky crystal back from his hand. F***ck, this is robbery. Wang Lu was shocked and touched his cheek in disbelief. A kiss cost 1,000,000 spirit stones? Is this the wholesale price or the price of arsenic? Have some shame, my sister. Wang Wu said affectionately, what's precious is not the relationship, but the sincerity. Sorry, your mind is too dirty. I don't want it. Wang Lu said as he tried to take back the mysterious sky crystal. Sorry, we don't accept returns or exchanges. After arguing for a while, Wang Lu finally gave up trying to snatch food from the tiger's mouth. He was just curious. Seriously, why do you need so much money? Since we've known each other, since we've known each other for a lifetime, I'm afraid you've spent hundreds of millions of spirit stones. Even if you f***ck a handsome guy every day, you don't need that much money, right? Wang Wu put away the mysterious sky crystal and sweetly smiled. Women, there are always many places where they need to spend money. Moreover, how do you think I got those pills? With my mixed spirit root, even if I inherit your legacy, it's impossible for me to cultivate many king pill in more than 100 years by myself. Sure enough. Like I said, you've spent so much money, but you can't even buy yourself a decent outfit, no matter what, it's not justifiable. Wang Lu nodded. But you need to take it easy. My funds are limited. Even if Wisdom Sect enters the profitable period, it's still just a grassroots sect, so it can't afford your bottomless consumption. Li Nana has complained to me more than once about the withdrawal of funds. Upon hearing this, Wang Wu smiled. I know. Later on, I won't ask for more from you. Moreover, to be honest, do you think you're my big financial backer? In fact, it's just pocket money. Wang Lu really wanted to hit someone. He had seen shameless people, but never one as shameless as her. She spent hundreds of millions of spirit stones in the past few decades, and then she told him that was just pocket money? However, before Wang Lu could make his move, there was a knock on the door. "Excuse me, is fellow Taoist Wang Lu here?" Since there was an uninvited guest who came to disturb them, the master and disciple pair no longer joked around. Wang Wu nodded and her figure disappeared, while Wang Lu got out of bed to open the door. When he opened the door, he saw a little baldy with a sunny smile on his face. Wang Lu couldn't help but find it funny. This Zen cultivator's business was really spread all over the world. He actually begged for alms in his own sect. He didn't know how those gatekeepers in the Wuxia League did their jobs. He was an important member of the excavation management, but he was actually disturbed by door-to-door salesmen at the training base. Just as he was thinking about whether he should throw the leftovers in the room to this baldy, the baldy smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist Wang Lu, I've been looking for you for a long time. I'm Luo Xiao from the Huayan sect. I've cultivated for 81 years and am at the peak of the King Pill. I'm here to challenge you." "Oh?" Wang Lu frowned. He really couldn't remember the name of Huayan sect's Luo Xiao. He didn't even have a deep impression of the Huayan sect. It seemed to be an unknown middle-level Zen sect. Speaking of which, among the middle-level sects, if one could reach the peak of the King Pill in 80 years, he would be considered as a genius that only appeared once in 100 years. Lingjian School was one of the 5 uniques of the Wuxia League. In their school, there were a lot of people who couldn't reach the King Pill stage even after 50 years of cultivation. However, this Luo Xiao actually dared to challenge him. His courage was really commendable. Although his peak of the King Pill stage was still somewhat lacking, in terms of overall strength, there weren't many people in the entire 9 regions who were stronger than him. After all, for an ordinary cultivator, the limit of the King Pill stage was right there. No matter how much effort they put in, they were limited by their cultivation method, spirit root grade, and the power of their magical treasure. Thus, their overall strength could not be compared to Wang Lu. Seeing the displeasure on Wang Lu's face, Luo Xiao explained, "I'm a newcomer who just joined the one-on-one group. In the morning, I've just fought with several other people in the group and learned a lot. Then, I heard that fellow Taoist Wang Lu is recognized as one of the top 3 in the one-on-one group of King Pill stage cultivators. Therefore, I came here to ask for advice. Please forgive me." Hearing this, Wang Lu was even more surprised. "You're in the one-on-one group?" The one-on-one group, as the name implied, was the group of King Pill stage cultivators who would fight with Dixian 2 months later. The requirements of this group were the harshest. It was a group of the most capable King Pill cultivators in the entire 9 regions. Even among the lead disciples of the 5 uniques, only Wang Lu and Xiong were selected. Because Zhou Mumu, Zhan Zai, and the others had not reached the peak of King Pill stage, they could only participate in some of the sub-events. And in this group, Wang Lu was at most one of the top 3. In addition to Wang Wu, who was firmly in the first place, Qianghua, Zhu Shiyao, and several other veteran King Pill stage cultivators were all tyrannical and peerless. If Wang Lu encountered any of them, he would not have a 100% chance of winning. Being firmly in the top 3 was more or less because of his reputation. However, this little baldy in front of him was able to have a place in the King Pill group, which was full of strong people. Moreover, he even dared to come to his door and challenge him. It seemed like he was not an easy person to deal with, which was worth paying attention to. In addition to being an elite King Pill cultivator, Wang Lu also had the identity of the planner and organizer of the whole competition. He was the one who formulated the plan of the competition, so he had to personally participate in the overall work. In addition to Supreme He too and a few other people in the excavation management, his words had a lot of weight. Therefore, he had to understand these unexpected changes in time in order to make a decision. Okay, I just finished my meal, I'll accompany you to play. The last thing that Royal Soldier sect lacked was the practice field. Outside the lava cave, there were 3 luxurious venues that could accommodate the fight of peak deity stage cultivators. Wang Lu randomly chose one and found that there was a sea of people around him after he went on stage. In addition to the few people in the one-on-one group, all the people in this special training had come to watch. At the same time, a large group of enthusiastic spectators came down from Royal Soldier sect and surrounded the venue. Seeing this scene, Wang Lu could not help but exclaim. It seems that these guys still don't have enough training. A mere farce has attracted so many idlers. It seems that it's necessary to give them more responsibility in time and popularize the training method of the one-on-one group. Wait a minute, it stands to reason that outsiders are not allowed to go in and out of this place. What are the gatekeepers doing? As a result, when Wang Lu turned around, he saw the culprit who caused all this. For only 300 spirit stones, you can watch the fight of the number 1 legend in 9 regions, King Pill. Want to know the secret of Wang Lu's legend? Want to crack the legendary invincible sword, non-phase sword? As long as you spend 300 spirit stones to buy the admission ticket, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. That white figure, even in the crowded crowd, was particularly eye-catching. It made people want to beat her up. Ha ha ha, fellow Taoist Wang Lu has a very interesting master, it's really enviable. Our Flower Stern School's elders are so old-fashioned that I haven't seen them laugh even once in a year. This is simply a bitter hatred. Luo Xiao laughed and carelessly ridiculed his own elders. Wang Lu snorted. Enough with the idle talk, I'm not that familiar with you. Luo Xiao shrugged his shoulders and then jumped onto the training field and took a stance in the middle of the field. Previously, Wang Lu had never fought against the Baldies of Flower Stern School. He only learned about the sect's methods from the books. Generally speaking, this was a lackluster sect. From the management of the sect to its inheritance, it had the characteristics of an ordinary middle-rank sect. For those at the bottom of the immortal cultivation world, this was a bright and dazzling sect. But for those who stood at the top, it was really nothing to look at. However, Wang Lu's intuition told him that this Baldi was not that simple. This was not surprising. In recent decades, rare geniuses emerged one after another in the 9 regions, and their value was greatly reduced. Wang Lu and Xiong were undoubtedly the best among them. However, there were also a large number of talents that flowed into the small and medium-sized sects, and after a fortuitous encounter, they were rapidly strengthened. Although this little Baldi came from Flower Stern School, it was not impossible for him to obtain the ancient inheritance through a fortuitous encounter and have a strength far beyond his peers. Fellow Taoist Wang Lu, please be lenient. Wang Lu nodded his head. Rest assured, the first time will be gentle. As soon as his voice fell, the pink dagger in his hand shone with a blood-like crimson color, and the primal chaos sword Qi slashed forward with an indomitable momentum. As soon as he made his move, it was a killing move. Chapter 598. Boom! On the martial arts field, the chaotic sword Qi exploded. The sword Qi catalyzed by the immortal sword Rouge Tears had the terrifying power to destroy a nascent soul Taoist master. The whole martial arts field shook and the mountains shook. The continuous mountain range that was used as the setting broke in the middle. The mountain collapsed to both sides, stirring up a huge amount of sand and dust. For the many experienced and knowledgeable elite cultivators present, they would not be frightened by such a scene. But no one expected that Wang Lu would be so unyielding at the beginning. This was a genuine sword that could split mountains and split stones. As an appetizer for a one-on-one fight, it was a bit too sumptuous. Everyone present asked themselves. Almost no one below the nascent soul stage dared to say that they could take on that sword. He was indeed worthy of the title of legendary Golden Core. Although Wang Lu became famous more because of his wisdom than his martial strength was indeed worthy of his reputation. Only Wang Lu himself frowned slightly after the sword attack. He was not satisfied with the result of this sword attack. The landslide looked gorgeous and dazzling, but for a sword cultivator of his realm, it could only mean that most of the energy was wasted on the destruction of the environment, and the real target was missed. That little baldy really had some skills. To be able to dodge the lightning-fast chaotic sword chi, it would be considered good if 1 in 100 king pills could do it. On the other side, Luo Xiao also had a lingering fear. The black-clothed bald man struggled to stand on the collapsed mountain peak and then asked loudly, "Wang Lu, fellow cultivator? What happened to being lenient? Didn't you say that you would be gentle the first time?" Wang Lu smiled and said, "Yes, if you can't dodge, you won't feel any pain. You will be turned into ashes in an instant. Isn't that gentle enough?" Luo Xiao's body trembled. This gentleness, I still have to politely decline." Before his voice died away, his figure flew out like lightning. The next moment, there was a rouge-colored sword light piercing the sky from below where he stood. "You're quite good at dodging." On the other side, Wang Lu was a little dissatisfied and put away the sword art in his left hand. This was the first time his self-created primal chaos sky-stealing sword was used to fight, but it failed. Different from the primal chaos sky-stealing sword, which could penetrate everything head-on, the primal chaos sky-stealing sword relied more on the slender and delicate characteristics of rouge tears to infinitely compress the sharp sword chi and pierce the opponent silently. The absolutely powerful penetrating power and undetectable concealment made this sword the most powerful sneak attack weapon in Wang Lu's hands. Wang Lu originally intended to use this trick on his big sister Zhu Shiyao to see if her stellar divine eyes could see through the disguise of the immortal sword. In the end, it seemed that there was no need to find eldest senior sister to humiliate herself. She couldn't even fool this baldy, so how could she fool the stellar divine eyes? After all, the primal chaos heaven-stealing sword's completion rate was only 30%. At this stage, he couldn't expect too much from it. In any case, Luo Xiao's performance had made Wang Lu even more vigilant. Perhaps he was overthinking things, or perhaps he was naturally discriminating against skinheads, but Wang Lu really didn't like this sunny Luo Xiao. Daoist Wang Lu's sword is so powerful. It's silent and powerful. I was almost penetrated. In midair, Luo Xiao's black robe was completely unfolded. 2 pitch-black wings were on either side of his body, slowly flapping, casting a large shadow on the ground and supporting him to maintain his figure in the landslide. His shiny forehead was full of sweat and glistened under the sun. The next moment, an unprecedentedly strong light bloomed from the top of his head. It was several times more dazzling than the scorching sun above his head. The light was enough to blind people in an instant. Wang Lu happened to be looking up at his opponent at this time. He couldn't open his eyes when the strong light pierced him. And this strong light had a demonic nature, which resonated with his 5 senses, including hearing, taste, smell. All of them lost their sharpness. However, Wang Lu remained calm. Holding rouge tears in his right hand, his non-phase sword defense expanded at an astonishing speed. His left hand pressed on his chest and pulled out his original magical ability. Thousands of broken swords set off a storm around him, and each sword strike was like a full blow from a Taoist master of King Pill. The heavy rain only lasted for a moment before it subsided. However, at this time, the training field was in a mess. The 1,000-meter deep pit almost ran through the training field, making it on the verge of collapse. Before going on stage, the manager of the training field set the level of the field to the highest level of King Pill. In theory, it could accommodate dozens of peak King Pill cultivators. Unexpectedly, not long after the fight began, the field was already on the verge of collapse. Is that guy really at the peak of King Pill? The onlookers outside the field had their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Wang Lu's violent output just now had reached the point of challenging common sense. Let alone the King Pill cultivators, even those peak Yuanying stage cultivators in the one-on-one group might not be able to do it. The burst of magical power in a short period of time was enough to drain 10 peak King Pill cultivators. Although the way it was used was too rough, no one would be willing to taste it if they were in each other's shoes. Moreover, it was said that at this time, Wang Lu had not reached the peak of his King Pill period. Many of his cultivation methods had not kept up. Strictly speaking, his foundation was not solid. Are the people in Lingjian school all monsters? How could he be so powerful when he's only at the peak of King Pill? What kind of cultivation method is he cultivating? What kind of cultivation method in the world can make someone so abnormal in the King Pill period? It has nothing to do with his cultivation method. Although non-phase method is indeed one of the top cultivation methods in the world, the ability to engulf the violent surrounding spiritual energy is the privilege of the void spirit root. After this guy reached Jindan stage, he can finally bring out the power of this legendary spirit root. In the crowd, a young man with golden hair stared intently at Wang Lu on the training field. Although he looked calm, his hands sometimes clenched and sometimes relaxed, which showed the great waves in his heart. The surrounding people quickly recognized him. He was the lead disciple of the 10,000 Art sect, Zhan Zai. Recently, his cultivation base had advanced by leaps and bounds. His long golden hair, which was catalyzed by the power of thunder, had become one of his signature features. However, although Zhan Zai's cultivation base was fast, he couldn't be compared to Wang Lu, who could advance several times in one night. At present, his cultivation base was only at the high-level King Pill stage, so he couldn't enter the one-on-one group. However, Zhan Zai was one of the best in the racing group. His Thunder Body and Thunder Immortal technique, with the assistance of the 10,000 motionless immortal heart, were comparable to the flying speed of a Yuanying stage cultivator, which made countless cultivators of the same generation feel powerless. However, at this moment, after witnessing the performance of Wang Lu, presumably, his heart could no longer calm down. Once upon a time, their 10,000 Art sect team visited Spirit Sword Mountain. How high-spirited they were. At that time, among the disciples of Spirit Sword Mountain, except for Zhu Shiyao, who was in closed-door training, only Lu Li could fight against him. As a successor disciple, Wang Lu was still a stage lower than him, and their strength was almost not on the same line. However, in just a dozen years, things have changed. Wang Lu is indeed formidable, making people feel ashamed of their inferiority. Zhan Zai was actually indifferent to the fact that Wang Lu had caught up from behind. However, a petite but indifferent girl beside him suddenly frowned. "Senior brother Zai, you're the lead disciple of the 10,000 Art sect, how could you say that you feel ashamed of your inferiority so lightly?" Upon hearing the girl's words, Zhan Zai was stunned and asked, "Do you want me to kneel and lick his boots?" "That's not good, although my strength is not as good as his, I'm still the lead disciple of the 10,000 Art sect." The girl directly stepped on his foot, which made a crisp sound. "Junior sister, why did you step on my foot? You're the lead disciple of the 10,000 Art sect, your every word and action represents the face of the 10,000 Art sect, how could you easily admit defeat? Not to mention now, under the watchful eyes of the public, you can't back down. After a while, when Wang Lu finishes his fight, you can go up. That's not good, right? I see that fellow Daoist Luo Xiao has been beaten black and blue. After this fight, I'm afraid he'll be bedridden for several days, unable to move. If I go up and hit him while he's down, wouldn't that be the act of a villain? I want you to challenge Wang Lu. Zhang Zai was even more surprised. Isn't that just asking to be humiliated? Speaking of which, as a professional manager, why do you always make stupid moves? The sect has paid a high price to hire you in order to help us, a group of low EQ cultivators, not make stupid moves, but I think you're worse than me. The girl sighed and then took out a glittering embroidery needle from her pocket. Zhang Zai's face changed. I know, when this fight is over, I'll go challenge Wang Lu, and I'll definitely go all out. Since the elders of the immortal sect hired this professional manager, Zhang Zai had really suffered from the lightning rod in her hand. That embroidery needle was personally refined by Supreme Tian Luan, which specialized in breaking the world's thunder technique. With one needle, even though his thunder body had been cultivated to the thunder immortal technique, which made him almost immune to ordinary physical attacks, he still felt like he was hovering between life and death. With this embroidery needle, the professional manager really had power over his life and death. Even if Zhang Zai didn't want to fight with Wang Lu, he could only prepare for the fight. At the same time, the battle on the martial arts field had also come to an end. Using Solar Fist to seize the opponent's line of sight, and then taking the opportunity to make a sneak attack. Luo Xiao's tactic was originally good, and the Solar Fist indeed dazzled Wang Lu's eyes. However, the combat experience honed from countless battles allowed him to make the correct response in a flash. The expanding sword defense and the roar of thousands of broken swords turned the area hundreds of feet around him into a dead land. Luo Xiao, who was quietly approaching, was also hit by this violent force. No, I admit defeat, I admit defeat. In the deep pit, Luo Xiao wrapped himself in a broken black cloak. His whole body was scarred, and blood flowed all over the ground. But his bright smile did not change at all. TSK, even this can't kill you? I have the treasure of Huayan School, the black Kasaya of the heavenly Kasaya. Unfortunately, it seems to have been used up by me. As he said that, Luo Xiao stood up, cupped his hands to admit defeat to Wang Lu, and then retreated from the field. Wang Lu shook his head. The other party had admitted defeat, so he couldn't attack anymore. He could only wait for another chance in the future. However, before Wang Lu was ready to get up, a figure outside the martial arts field jumped into the field like lightning, and the awe-inspiring battle intent stabbed toward him like a sword. Wang Lu's spirit couldn't help but shake, and when he saw the identity of the person, he was even more surprised and opened his mouth wide. Big sister? At the same time, countless people outside the martial arts field were also stunned. Zhu Shiyao. Why is she here? Chapter 599. On the training field, Zhu Shiyao's unexpected appearance, as well as her tit-for-tat imposing manner, made the spectators dumbfounded. Among these people, Zhang Zai was the most surprised. He even had to close his dislocated jaw with his hand before he could speak. Junior sister Qianqian, I'm sorry, I misunderstood you before. I thought that you professional managers are a group of vampires who only take the money but don't work. Unexpectedly, you guys actually have some skills. You've long expected that Zhu Shiyao would jump out to stir up trouble, so you let me go on stage to challenge her. I understand what you mean. I can't win by myself, but if I join forces with Zhu Shiyao, there's hope to trample junior brother Wang Lu under our feet. Shut up. Qianqian unceremoniously pricked the lightning rod on Zhang Zai's thigh, which immediately made the latter roll on the ground in pain. At the same time, the audience that previously surrounded Zhang Zai, who was full of curiosity about this lead disciple of 10,000 arts sect, also quietly retreated a distance, mainly based on their fear of Qianqian. It was best to stay away from a woman who could torture a veteran lead disciple to roll on the ground. Qianqian herself turned a blind eye to all of this. She thought that as a professional manager, the only task of her was to assist Zhang Zai to walk on the right path. Today was a good opportunity. Although Wang Lu was strong, he was not invulnerable. His offensive and defensive attributes were indeed unsolvable, but his speed did not form an absolute advantage. As long as Zhang Zai could fully display his lightning immortal technique, at least, he could be in an invincible position. Although Zhang Zai couldn't beat his opponent in a protracted fight, in the current critical situation, it was impossible for the two of them to fight a protracted war. If they couldn't decide the outcome after a period of time, naturally, it would be considered a draw. The result of the draw with Wang Lu was very favorable for the current 10,000 arts sect. Unfortunately, all of this was destroyed by Zhu Shiyao. 2 against 1, not to mention that even so, they still might not be able to do anything to Wang Lu. Even if they could win, what would happen to Zhang Zai's reputation? And what would Wang Lu and Zhu Shiyao think of him, who rashly disturbed the situation? What a pity, I wonder when I'll get another chance like this. Qianqian shook her head and sighed. Then, she grabbed Zhang Zai's right foot and dragged him away, leaving under the shocked gazes of countless people. At the same time, the situation on the martial arts practice field was very subtle. Wang Lu sized him up for a long time before sighing. Eldest senior sister, are you here to praise me for my improvement in cultivation and superb swordsmanship? As Wang Lu spoke, he raised rouge tears again and tightened his muscles, ready to fight at any time. He knew very well what kind of person Grand Senior Sister was. Strictly speaking, Zhu Shiyao was a pure, kind, and helpful girl. After years of education and nurturing by Feng Yin Daoist master, her nature was undoubtedly kind. The problem was that apart from being a pure and kind girl, she was also a sword cultivator who would focus on swordsmanship without any distractions. In her eyes, everything in the world was related to swordsmanship. So basically, when people got along with her, they would not see her pure and kind side, only a sword cultivator who was crazy about swordsmanship. Once Zhu Shiyao entered her crazy swordsmanship mode, she would really not recognize anyone. It was obvious why a sword cultivator who did not recognize anyone came in front of him. Well, eldest senior sister, I know you've entered your swordsmanship heat again. After seeing my 3 swordsmanship styles just now, you couldn't help yourself, right? Sigh, I also know that it's useless to scold you for not knowing the time and place. Then come and experience it for yourself. Hurry up and go rest after you're satisfied. After saying that, Wang Lu directly greeted with Chaos Sword Qi. The Sword Qi was like a dragon, and the gray sword dragon that seemed to be able to split the heavens and earth pounced on the opponent. The awe-inspiring sword power frightened many spectators outside the martial arts practice field. This was not an attack that could be blocked head-on. Fortunately, although this sword was powerful, its speed was slower than usual. If she dodged with all her strength, she should be able to dodge it, for a super elite like Zhu Shiyao. But in the next moment, Zhu Shiyao's choice surprised many people. She raised her sword and moved forward, the tip of her sword facing the Chaos Sword Dragon. She actually wanted to fight head-on against this unstoppable sword. And just when people thought that the girl would be swallowed by the sword dragon, the martial arts practice field flashed with bright starlight, and the thick and long sword dragon disappeared without a trace under the shining starlight. Wang Lu shrugged his shoulders helplessly. What a good stellar divine eyes. In the eyes of anyone in the same realm, the full-powered attack of the immortal-level swordsmanship should be perfect and even beyond imagination. Unfortunately, in Zhu Shiyao's eyes, it was still full of flaws. She aimed at the flaws and only used 10% of her strength to break his full-powered attack. If they fought according to this exchange ratio, the one who would lose would be him. Although he was ahead in terms of realm, the advantage was not absolute. During this period of time, Zhu Shiyao's cultivation progress was also astonishing. She was not completely left behind by him, and her strength was about 20% of his. 10 to 1, it was him who could not afford to delay. To deal with a woman, only knowing how to rush forward is really not good. However, when it came to skill, what skill in the world could be more exquisite than the stellar divine eyes that could directly see through the future? Non-phase sword and primal chaos heaven-splitting sword had already stood at the peak of the immortal cultivation world in terms of sophistication and complexity, but in Zhu Shiyao's eyes, they were still not enough. Especially after the fight with Zhong Xingming in the ancient sword tomb, where Wang Lu obtained the inheritance of the sword demon, Zhu Shiyao's harvest was also not small. Not only did she obtain the inheritance of the sword demon, but also, by chance coincidence, expanded her purple mansion that could accommodate primordial spirit to an unimaginable level. Currently, Zhu Shiyao's King Pill magical power, Jade Mansion, and physical body were not as good as Wang Lu's, but the strength of her primordial spirit was actually higher than Wang Lu's. Therefore, in her eyes, the primal chaos heaven-splitting sword appeared dull and rough. That time when her primordial spirit was strengthened, it really elevated her specialty to a heaven-defying level. However, this scene had long been expected by Wang Lu. His skill was not comparable to Zhu Shiyao's, and it was even more impossible for him to not reveal his flaws in front of her, if he was alone. If he wanted to defeat the opponent, there were only two ways. One was to use an absolute and violent damage output, which was the unlimited use of the 3 consecutive strikes he used against Luo Xiao, which overwhelmed Zhu Shiyao's stellar divine eyes and gradually made it impossible for her to maintain the 10 to 1 exchange ratio. However, the king's way was also the way to victory, but this road really lacked aesthetics. Moreover, Wang Lu believed that his big sister deliberately jumped into the arena not to see this kind of crude fighting method. As expected of the stellar divine eyes. You can even see my hidden trump card? Very well, I'll let you see it. The other way to defeat Zhu Shiyao was to use some external force. Autumn beam, give me a hand. As soon as his voice fell, the new sword spirit in rouge tears showed her figure. A flawless white hand was placed on Wang Lu's wrist, and a stream of immortal spirit energy was injected from her fingertips, making the immortal sword in Wang Lu's hand become illusory. Subsequently, a primal chaos sword chi shot out from the tip of the sword. The sword chi's trajectory changed several times in mid-air, drawing a zigzag line. Zhu Shiyao's complexion changed, revealing an incredible look. Her dark pupils rapidly enlarged and rapidly changed shape. At the same time, the sword in her hand became unstable and swayed in the air. She actually could not capture the trajectory of the chaotic sword chi, let alone find the flaw in the sword chi. The starry divine eyes had seen through the future countless times, but every time, the result she saw was that she would be defeated by this sword. There was no possibility of victory. The final result was indeed as she predicted. Although Wang Lu's sword did not erupt with all its power, Zhu Shiyao, who had no choice but to use brute force to resist, could no longer resist. She was pushed out by a soft force contained in the sword chi, and her whole body was numb. When she regained control of her body, she had already fallen out of the arena. According to the rules, she was naturally defeated. This was Wang Lu's second method, which was to join forces with the sword spirit, allowing Autumn Beam to make up for the flaws in the primal chaos heaven-splitting sword, dynamically adjusting it so that the sword chi could maintain its flawless state at any time. This style was called Heaven Repairing Sword. Although it seemed that using the sword spirit as a helper did not conform to the one-on-one rules, generally speaking, the sword spirit was tested as an accessory of the immortal sword and was not treated as an independent creature, even if at this time Autumn Beam was no different from an ordinary creature. Just like the cultivators of the beast-taming school, they would fight side by side with their spirit beasts. For a sword cultivator with a sword spirit, relying on the sword spirit was also understandable. Moreover, when Autumn Beam fought alone, because she could not reside in Rouge Tears, the difficulty of controlling the immortal treasure greatly increased. The power of Wang Lu's sword qi was weakened by at least 80%. But at the same time, it also became perfect and flawless, just restraining Zhu Shiyao's stellar divine eyes. Big senior sister, this sword is specially dedicated to you. For the time being, I ask you, are you satisfied? Zhu Shiyao was stunned outside the arena for a while. She was not discouraged because of the defeat. Instead, a smile gradually bloomed on her face, and her cheeks were stained with a trace of redness. She looked jubilant. This was what she wanted to see. After witnessing too many victories from the stellar divine eyes, she was actually more eager for a failure. She wanted to say thank you to Wang Lu, but when the words came to her mouth, she did not know how to say them. Junior brother Wang Lu, I have been looking forward to this sword for a long time, thank you. Wang Lu. Thank you. With that, Zhu Shiyao looked very tired. After nodding her head, she floated away from the arena. On the arena, Wang Lu looked at the countless horrified faces below the arena. He only felt that everything in front of him was pitch black. Big senior sister, you better not open your mouth in the future. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.